The anime begins with the hero of our story, who finds himself in a very strange space. He wonders where on earth he is, although all of a sudden, something begins to shatter. Upon breaking through the wall, he questions why on earth he is in a forest and why he is unable to move. Suddenly, a status bar announces a dragon egg, and a very peculiar voice explains to him that it is a simplified list of his skills. This is the voice of God, and it is currently at level 1. At the moment, one of his special skills is the eggshell. The hero inquires if this happens to be some kind of game, although the voice of God answers that it cannot respond to that query. He then asks what on earth it is talking about, and it cannot answer that either, causing him to become infuriated and begin to bombard the entity with questions, none of which are answered, and therefore, frustrated, he attempts to move. Consequently, the egg in which he resides falls from a tree, causing him to acquire fall resistance, in addition to the title of clumsy. Following this, the egg begins to roll, and he almost plunges into the river. Fortunately, he does not fall. However, upon seeing his reflection in the water, he is profoundly shocked to discover that he is an actual egg. Currently, he is ranked at F rank, and although dragons are incredibly powerful creatures, when they are in egg form, they are considered a delicacy for adventurers, so he must exercise extreme caution. He ends up panicking, thinking that they will devour him, and because of this, he begins to walk around in a curious and frustrated manner, rolling once again, which causes his rolling skill to increase to level 2. He wonders what he can do with this, and although upon thinking a bit better, he is capable of controlling his rolling movements, and he feels that the best course of action is to increase his speed. He ultimately crashes, increasing his fall resistance once again, as well as his clumsiness. The minor detail is that his health points are now down to 3, and if his egg shatters, he will perish, so he feels that it is best to rest for a short while. After doing so, his health points recover back to 5, and he prepares to move a little, and while doing so, he wonders what his evolution path will be. He thinks that he is a dragon egg, a highly dangerous creature, although he does not know how to transform into one in the first place. But if this world is like an RPG, then the most logical conclusion is that he must gain experience to be able to level up, which basically equates to defeating enemies. But how is he going to accomplish that when he is merely an egg? Suddenly, he encounters another monster, coincidentally a caterpillar, and upon analyzing it, he discovers that its species is a dark Harem. He panics upon realizing that this wretched monster is an egg eater, and upon noticing his presence, the creature advances rapidly toward our hero. He desperately rolls for his life, and the caterpillar has no intention of surrendering, and for that reason, there is no other option but to defeat it. However, a direct confrontation would mean his demise, and therefore, the best approach is to use his brain. Taking advantage of the environment, he manages to defeat the caterpillar by pushing it off a cliff. Although both of them fall, he prays that this wretched caterpillar has perished, but the caterpillar stands up once again, though it was only to cause a small heart attack for our hero, since immediately afterward, it collapses. With this, our little dragon egg gains 12 experience points, and also receives the title of Walking Egg, and along with that, an additional 12 extra experience points, which is sufficient to advance from level 1 to level 5. At that moment, he reaches the maximum level for an egg, and he now fulfills the requirements to be able to evolve. The voice of God asks if he wants to see the evolution path, and upon confirming, he observes that he must choose between becoming a baby dragon or a small dragon. He does not understand what the difference is, and neither do we, and for that reason, the voice of God explains that, as its name suggests, a small dragon is basically a dragon that is small, and this explanation is absolutely terrible. But immediately afterward, it reveals that, although it is small, it is larger than a bear, and adventurers are terrified of its fire attacks. Our little egg expresses his gratitude, and right after that, he asks what the other type of dragon does. The voice then reveals that it possesses very succulent meat, and due to its small claws and canines, it is not suited for combat, but it has immense potential, and later on, it evolves into various types of dragons, meaning it represents a much more complicated difficulty to reach something powerful. The egg then feels more secure going down the path of the small dragon, although out of nowhere, he feels as if something is telling him that he cannot do that, since there are high hopes for him, and his objective must be to reach the absolute top. The voice of God then ascends to level 2, while our egg wonders what on earth that was. But thanks to this, he ultimately understands that being a small dragon, although it is safer for the moment, if he wishes to reach the top as that mysterious being requested of him, then it is better for him to evolve into the baby dragon, since it possesses a much greater potential for evolution. Whereas the small dragon cannot evolve nearly as much, he ultimately decides to go down the path of the baby dragon. Upon breaking through the shell, he obtains the title of Dragon King's son. In addition to this, he causes all resistance skills that are currently below level 5 to increase their levels, alongside acquiring the skills of Dragon Scales, Baby Breath, and Playful Bite. He notes that his statistics have risen significantly, and despite having undergone an evolution, his health points and mana points are not restored, which is why he needs to rest to recover a bit. He then thanks the egg-eating caterpillar for crossing his path, since thanks to it, he is no longer an egg. However, hunger strikes him, and he does not want to consume that wretched caterpillar. But at that moment, the voice speaks, stating that he must become strong, and he understands that if he wishes to reach the top, he must survive. Therefore, without further ado, he devours it, although afterward he laments because the taste is utterly horrendous. The following day, he wakes up with the illusion of being a human once more. But that did not happen, and upon seeing his reflection in the lake, he realizes that he does not even remember what his previous life was like. He cannot remember whether he was a young man or a young woman. He only knows that he was a human, although his thoughts are interrupted by a horde of egg-eating caterpillars. Except this time, he is the hunter, and after defeating them, he quickly rises to level 3. He continues to test his skills one after another, such as the Fire Punch and the Dragon Breath, and in this manner, he rapidly ascends in levels, just like his skills. But then, his stomach begins to rumble once again, and remembering the horrendous taste of that caterpillar, he thinks it is better to opt for another alternative. Although the exact same thing happens as did with the caterpillar, he goes to the lake to drink water to rid his mouth of that foul taste, additionally acquiring poison resistance because the mushroom he consumed was poisonous. His title of Clumsy rises to level 3, and at that point, he enters the forest to search for something to eat, anything that is not a caterpillar. He then encounters a wolf, and seeing that its statistics are nothing special, he simply cooks it with a fire punch. Sensing that it smells like roasted meat, he finishes cooking it with his dragon breath, becoming thrilled because he can finally eat something delicious. And thus the day passes, with him hunting wolves and devouring them, praying to reach level 20. Then, the voice of God informs him that his next evolution will take place at level 25. He is very anxious to see what he will transform into, and currently, he is cooking another wolf, understanding why it costs so much to raise the final levels. He has adapted quite well to living as a dragon, although he laments having no one to speak with. However, out of nowhere, he hears voices in the forest, which declare that they have defeated that rock dragon, so that in this way, their names will be heard everywhere, and they can finally leave that village. But the dragon cannot understand anything. He knows they are definitely human voices, and for that reason, he decides to go out to investigate. Hidden, he notes that those individuals are much weaker than he thinks. He also imagines that he could introduce himself, since he is quite cute anyway, but there is a possibility that this group working together might destroy him, although he is tired of being alone, and because of this, he tries to introduce himself to make some friends. He then begins to dance to appear even cuter, but one of the adventurers is already full of malice and smiles very wickedly, and in his eyes, he is merely a horrible creature, and with his sword strike, he wounds our beloved little dragon. He gets frightened and tries to say that he is not their enemy, but the mage of the team utilizes paralysis to immobilize him. The voice of God informs him that he now possesses magic resistance. Although the little dragon does not care about that at all, his intention to make friends did not work, and they only view him as an enemy, or perhaps as their food. He feels that he was very foolish in this regard, since he is a dragon, so why would humans love him? He feels quite frustrated because he gave his everything to emerge from that egg, battled as hard as he could to survive, and now he does not want to die in this manner. He laments and begs for help, and at that moment, the healer of the team, upon noticing him, stops her companion, warning that this creature does not want to cause any harm. The little dragon observes her and wonders if she happens to be protecting him, and suddenly, the girl begins to heal him. The little dragon feels grateful, while the girl's companions allow her to heal him, warning that they are moving on ahead. The little dragon analyzes her and notes that her name is Miria, and she is already almost entirely out of mana, and yet she is still using the little that remains to heal him. He thinks that probably when he is fully healed, she will leave him, and for that very reason, he is going to stay very quiet, in order to enjoy a bit more of that highly comforting magic, as his paralysis is already wearing off. And at that moment, the voice of God announces that he has obtained the title of Liar, in addition to Pest Exterminator level 1, and Safety First. Following this, the girl mentions that his paralysis should wear off shortly, and out of nowhere, the voice of God announces that he has acquired the Grisha language. The dragon becomes very thrilled, since if this skill increases in level, he will possibly be able to comprehend her. But he suddenly hears a piercing scream coming from the forest. The hero thinks that presumably the adventurers from earlier have encountered the powerful creature, while Miria, for her part, attempts to go and assist her companions. The dragon stops her, since the girl does not possess much mana, and he knows perfectly well that she will not be able to accomplish anything. Despite this, however, Miria bids him farewell and asks him to take care of himself. The dragon laments because the paralysis has not yet passed completely, and he cannot move his body, but he has no intention of surrendering. Although he might perhaps not be able to defeat that creature, maybe by working as a team together with the three of them, they can accomplish something. A while later, the paralysis finally dissipates, and he searches for them desperately, coming across a little rock dragon. It is slightly paralyzed, and the hero is astonished to see that the wretched thing is a rank C monster. It still has 197 health points remaining, and the best course of action is to assess the overall situation. He notes that the adventurers are stretched out there on the ground, and upon seeing Miria, he panics. However, the little rock dragon becomes aware of his presence and begins to want to devour him. Fortunately, the dragon manages to evade its attack, while thinking that he committed a great folly by coming to think that among the four of them, they could defeat that thing. But it only has small in its name, because that rock dragon is absurdly massive. He notes, however, that Miria has very few health points left, and to make matters worse, the supposedly small dragon begins to head toward her. The desperate hero tries to assist her, but out of nowhere, he is stopped by the voice, which requests him to flee. It commands him to leave that location immediately because it is impossible for him to accomplish anything. The dragon understands perfectly well that he stands absolutely no chance of winning against it. And although the voice of God is correct, he cannot abandon that girl, and he tries to do his absolute best to manage to rescue her. Swiftly, he begins to roll, managing to evade the attack of the monster, causing him to obtain the title of Evasion King. He then quickly notes that the elderly man of the group, Grants, has already perished, but the other individual is still alive. The minor detail is that he is unconscious and has a very severe hemorrhage. He thinks that he must draw that monster away from there in some manner, and therefore, he rapidly begins to roll and attack it, causing the rock dragon to infuriate and begin to pursue him. Or at least that was what the dragon would have desired, since the dragon utilizes one of its skills, provoking an enormous earthquake that immobilizes our hero. He complains because that scoundrel is far too strong. Irritated, he advances with a fire punch, but nevertheless, the little rock dragon, as if it were nothing, uses its regeneration and easily recovers all of its health points. The hero understands that there is nothing left to be done, and for that reason, in the end, he picks up Miria and decides to flee from there, because if he cannot save both of them, at least he will save one, and obviously, he is going to carry the girl. A little later, upon finding himself outside of the danger zone, he becomes worried upon seeing that Miria's health points continue to deplete. Unfortunately, he does not count on a healing skill, but Miria is a human, and obviously she had to come from somewhere. And now if he wishes to save her, he must take her to a human village. Upon managing to sense a faint human odor, he heads there rapidly, but on the way, he is ambushed by a pack of gray wolves. They surround him very easily, and therefore, with nothing else to be done, he releases Miria to be able to rid himself of them. While Miria begins to open her eyes and manages to see a bit of our little dragon who is fighting against the wolves, but she loses consciousness once more. A while later, during the night, he continues to advance while carrying Miria. The minor detail is that the poor thing is already at his absolute limit, but fortunately, he manages to reach the village, and without losing any time, he begins to cry out for help. The villagers emerge rapidly, but they can only hear roars, and feeling threatened, they stab him in the leg. He tries to make them understand him, but when he realizes that they are going to understand absolutely nothing, he leaves Miria's body there and hopes that they can assist her, while he rapidly flees the location. As he heads once more toward the forest, he understands that no matter how much he attempts to approach them, they will always see him for what he truly is, a dragon, a monster. And at that moment, the deity decides to throw a bit of salt on the wound, commenting that the title of insignificant hero has reached level 1, and thus 2 days pass, and Miria finally awakens, somewhat disoriented, wondering where she is. Although upon seeing a red-haired elf, she understands that she is in the village. This elf is named Miriel, and she tells her that she used a great deal of white magic to be able to heal her. which is why it is best for the girl to continue resting. Miria asks who carried her to that location and where her companions are. But Muriel replies that Grants is dead, and they found his corpse as if he had been crushed by an enormous rock. She curses Douglas because that idiot dragged them into that. She also reveals to Miria that his body was not found, but due to how the scene looked, they probably devoured him. Miria then begins to weep upon realizing that she is the sole survivor, and she laments because if she had stopped Douglas, none of that would have happened. But Muriel tells her to calm down, because Douglas did whatever he pleased, and the most important thing is that she is now safe and sound. Miria comments that he was a good person, and she remembers that he was the one in charge of eliminating the monsters that approached too close to the village, in addition to being a great example for the children. However, one night, he heard how some people in the tavern were telling him that he could not defeat a rock dragon. Feeling offended, he stated that he would finish one off, and that imbecile practically went to get himself killed by the dragon because they challenged him. Poor thing. Due to this, he ended up dragging Grants and Miria along so they could form a group. Taking advantage of the fact that Muriel was not in the village, he fabricated that Muriel had given permission. But Miria knew perfectly well that Muriel had warned them not to approach that rock dragon. But Douglas convinced the girl, commenting that he did indeed have her permission and that Grants was a witness. To go with the flow, he said yes, and Douglas tells her that with or without her, they were going to defeat that dragon. They simply needed her because without her, it was possible they would die. He simply used this little psychological trick to try to make her feel guilty in case they died, and that ended up working. Miria decided to accompany them, but she stated that if things became dangerous, they should return, but we already know how everything ended. Muriel tells her that he died because of his stupid pride and recommends Miria to be more careful. She congratulates her for managing to return with such severe wounds. Although at that moment, Miria stands up abruptly and tells her that someone definitely carried her. Muriel tells her not to speak nonsense, since they found her at the entrance being attacked by a monster. But Miria tells her that she passed out during the fight against the rock dragon, and it is impossible that she could have fled on her own. However, Muriel attempts to convince her not to overthink the matter so much, since no villager enters that forest at night, and the only thing they know is that the monster was attacking her at the entrance, and the Gregory group managed to repel it. She comments that sometimes a person hits their head very hard, and this ends up causing memory loss, and it is possible that this is happening to her. Miria thinks that perhaps she has memory lapses, but remembering how the little dragon was fighting against the wolves, she asks Muriel what the monster that was with her looked like. She does not know, since when they called her, the monster had already gone away, and Muriel asks if perhaps something is troubling her. But Miria prefers not to dwell on the matter any further, although she wonders if perhaps it might have been that little dragon she encountered before. Meanwhile, in another area, our beloved little dragon wakes up as if it were nothing, giving thanks for the dragon metabolism, and for the good rest he had. He hopes that girl is well, and he remembers that he was far too weak during that battle. He thought that after evolving, he would be a bit stronger, but thanks to that fight, he realized the abyssal difference between himself and a little rock dragon. He desires to become much stronger, and it is time to do so. Therefore, in another scene, he utilizes an egg-eating caterpillar so that it calls its allies, and in this manner, he manages to create a grinding spot for experience. The voice of God comments that he has obtained the title of Path of Evil, although he feels a bit offended, and immediately afterward, he begins to destroy all the egg-eating caterpillars, rising in experience very quickly. Upon finishing off all of them, he finally manages to reach level 25. Now that he fulfills the conditions to be able to evolve, he prepares for the advancement, and what better preparation than to go to the lake to evolve and see his reflection in the water. The voice of God asks if he desires it to display the evolutions, and upon confirming, it displays a few options. The first is the marbled calamity, the second is the angelic child, the third is the little rock dragon, and the last is the child dragon. These are numerous options, and he does not know which one to select, although at that moment, the voice of God comments that the word small does not refer to the degree of evolution, but rather to a maximum growth limit in terms of size. The small type increases its statistics very rapidly, but its total evolutionary potential is lesser than that of a baby. Our beloved dragon understands that the small type grows faster, and can survive more easily. But in the long run, it ends up at a disadvantage, whereas the baby type possesses immense potential. The voice of God comments that the little rock dragon has few evolution options, but the ones it does possess are highly balanced, and its natural evolution should be the child dragon. It is then that our hero, feeling quite curious, inquires about what the juvenile is. But the voice of God remains silent. He then becomes frustrated by not knowing what he should choose, and therefore, he reviews each evolution one by one. The angelic dragon possesses the ability to heal, but its offensive power is weak. Right after, there is the child dragon, which is his natural evolution and possesses great power. This is the best option. However, the marble type is also quite strong and possesses a lot of mana. And lastly, there is the juvenile calamity dragon, the first step toward transforming into an evil dragon that sows disaster, but it can also return to the good path. The hero is not very interested in transforming into something evil, which is why he rejects this option. God mentions that this type of dragon is highly intelligent and also controls anthropomorphosis, which allows it to visit humans to commit wicked deeds. Upon realizing that he can transform himself and attempt to enter the human village, he ultimately changes his mind, but that word calamity still continues to disturb him. He has a bad premonition about choosing this calamity dragon, but he desires anthropomorphosis, and for that reason, he decides to risk everything. After all, if he does good deeds, he will be able to go down the correct path. It is then that he finally evolves into the calamity dragon, a highly imposing black dragon, but upon seeing his reflection, he wonders if he made the right choice. The voice of God then informs him that his status check has risen from level 2 to level 3. And therefore, he will now be able to review his aptitudes in detail. The voice of God also ascends to level 3, and he also acquires the flight aptitude and scale powder. Up to this point, everything was going well, until the voice of God begins to warn him about his skills. Some skills have transformed, and he has acquired the darkness attribute, in addition to the paralyzing claw and the pestilential breath, skills that seem quite malignant. He also obtains the title of calamity, and the path of evil rises to level 2. The poor thing then begins to repent, but he still expects his anthropomorphosis skill. Yet that wretched voice says nothing to him, and he feels thoroughly deceived. He asks if perhaps they will grant it to him upon leveling up. But the voice of God refuses to speak. He lies down disappointed because they gave him only strange skills that he did not want, and the only one he truly desired, he did not receive. What intrigues him the most is this so-called voice of God, since he does not know who on earth is speaking to him. Although the voice of God continues to refuse to reveal information, the dragon then asks what the scale powder is used for, and it explains that upon flapping its wings, it releases a miasma that debilitates surrounding monsters, and upon managing to rise to the maximum level, he will be able to destroy an entire country merely by flying over it. Unintentionally, he opens his wings and ends up withering the poor flower that was around him, and he panics, since this evolution has transformed him into a wretched biological weapon. Now he will not be able to open his wings, because if he does so, he will kill everything that is around him. He will also not be able to yawn, nor do anything of the sort, because if he releases his pestilential breath, he will propagate illnesses capable of annihilating populations. The dragon feels desperate and asks the divine voice if perhaps there are any of his titles that allow him to return to the path of good, since currently, he is practically the enemy of humanity. The divine voice reveals that the title of insignificant hero might someday guide him along the path of the hero. Since this affects future evolutions, he feels relieved, since if he manages to raise this title, he will be able to transform into a hero, and he asks what the next one is. The divine voice comments on the path of evil, a title that will transform him into an outlaw without the right to mercy, who raises mountains of corpses. In a panic, he requests a refund, since he wants to return to being good. Elsewhere, Miria is together with Muriel, who is examining some protection stones, in addition to applying a reinforcement to them to prevent monsters from entering the village. Miria asks if perhaps she is going to do this to all of them, and Muriel confirms that this is the case, revealing that she is merely placing a minor warning to prevent monsters from entering, but they cannot do anything against those who are truly determined. Miria understands then that the monster from the other occasion was indeed determined to enter, and she imagines that it was the dragon who protected her. Muriel, however, merely hopes that this monster did not enter through a damaged stone. While examining another one, Miria requests her to tell her more about Monster, and she comments that the girl has been taking a great interest ever since that night. Miria responds that she believes the one who saved her was a little dragon she encountered in the forest. Muriel thinks that she was possibly enchanted, but she decides to tell her anyway, since it does not hurt to know more about monsters. She then explains that they change their form due to evolutions. These repeated evolutions strengthen them, and Miria comprehends, since the same concept applies to humans, given that they level up by gaining experience and thereby strengthen their skills. With monsters, however, it is a little different, since they have a limit for each evolution, and when that limit arrives, the monster evolves and repeats the exact same process to be able to transform once again. And with each evolution made, the monster ends up at a much higher rank. Miria comments that she is quite surprised that the ancients were able to notice all these characteristics, although this ends up offending Muriel a bit because she is being called old. Furthermore, she remembers that she had already told her all of this before, and Miria acknowledges that she did, but she states that she told the girl this when she was only 5 years old and was very small, causing Muriel to feel quite offended once again. But she requests her to listen anew, and the information that was passed down is that people are capable of hearing a divine voice, and these people were told by heroes or holy maidens that, based on human trials, monsters fight to survive, and all of them seek to evolve without a single exception. All of them yearn for power and to become increasingly fierce. That is why, even if she encounters this dragon that supposedly rescued her again, the only thing she might achieve is for it to kill her. Miria then begs her to stop, although she immediately apologizes for shouting, but Muriel requests her not to trust monsters, as one can never live in peace with them, and upon leaving there, Miria thinks that if that is the case, this little dragon will also end up that way. On the other side, we see how our little dragon is highly motivated to level up to be able to obtain that cursed anthropomorphosis, since in this manner, he will be able to go to the village to see Miria. He then begins to search everywhere, but when he starts to walk, he realizes that he is not making any progress at all. He asks if he is trapped in a spiderweb, and at that moment, an enormous red spider prepares to devour him, but he says no, that he will not be her lunch, and he defends himself with a blaze, managing to burn the spiderweb and wound it. Although at the same time, he ends up burning himself as well. He begins to roll to put himself out, and seeing the little damage he caused the spider, he advances with his paralyzing claw and attacks continuously. But seeing its state, he realizes that he only took away half of its life. And the worst part is that this also made it quite irritated, which is why he applies the best strategy of all, which is hit and run. He rolls for his life desperately, and taking advantage of the paralysis, he manages to escape. But in a matter of seconds, the spider is already right behind him. Quite furious to tell the truth, the dragon remembers that he possesses that flight aptitude, and therefore he attempts to fly. But with those tiny wings, it is difficult to accomplish anything. He cannot fly very well, and it must probably be because he is at a very low level, and for that reason, he has no other choice but to keep rolling. Thus 10 minutes pass with the spider right on his tail, and since he has been rolling for so long, he manages to make this skill rise to level 3. He becomes very happy, since now he will be able to be much faster. But due to wanting to escape, he also obtains his title of coward. But he does not let this affect him, since his survival comes first and foremost. The minor detail is that further ahead, he encounters a ravine, but he views this as a good opportunity to escape, since this ends up increasing his rolling speed. And after taking a great leap, he opens his wings, managing to glide. Upon landing, he is quite relieved, but the poor thing is exhausted. However, as soon as he levels up, he is going to return for that spider. But upon turning to look at it, he notes that it is not there, and upon examining more closely, he realizes that the spider even attached a web to reach where he is. The dragon panics because the creature does not want to let him go away, and for that reason, he returns to rolling desperately, causing his rolling skill to rise to level 4. On the way, he encounters a wolf, and with a highly powerful strike, he sends the creature flying into the air, thereby securing 20 experience points. And since he defeated it with his rolling skill, thanks to the title of Walking Egg, he obtains an additional 20 experience points, allowing him to ascend from level 1 to level 3. The dragon ends up applying the exact same strategy to every single monster he sees. He sees one and immediately runs it over. And in this manner, a good amount of time passes, leaving behind a trail of various monster corpses. And if he continues in this fashion, he will shortly become like Sonic. Fortunately, he manages to attain level 8, and now with enhanced statistics, he begins to confront the wretched spider. Upon examining it, he notes that it possesses a paralyzing tongue and the double poison bite, and for that reason, he must exercise a great deal of caution. The minor detail is that this spider utilizes the double poison, creating a curtain of poisonous smoke. He swiftly distances himself and feels grateful for his poison resistance. Although this does not prevent his throat from burning, he notes that the spider appears to be waiting for him, realizing that it is basically waiting for the poison to take effect, and therefore he takes advantage of the opportunity to pretend that he was affected. When the spider begins to attack him, he rises swiftly and unleashes his fire breath. After turning it into ashes, it lies completely shattered there on the ground, and by managing to defeat the spider, he succeeded in rising from level 8 to level 14. It was quite a significant upgrade here. He is very happy because now indeed he must possess a sufficient level to use anthropomorphosis. But at that moment, the divine voice begins to inform him that the level of his baby breath has increased, and that he has acquired the draconic tail aptitude. The dragon feels happy, merely waiting for them to inform him that he has obtained anthropomorphosis, with his expectations incredibly high. But the poor thing receives a bucket of cold water, since the divine voice does not make the announcement he so heavily anticipated. The poor creature becomes disappointed and wonders if perhaps he needs to fulfill some specific requirement to manage to obtain it. Thus time passes, and upon securing his dinner, he goes to look for a good place to be able to eat peacefully. He manages to find a cave, and at night, after meticulously preparing the wolf meat, he adds some berries that he had found. In this manner, he causes the meat to have an even better flavor, and after eating, he comments that he will transform that cave into his new camp, where he will store all of his food. Following this, the voice of God announces that he has obtained the title of cook, and he requests that it stay out of his personal life. A while later, while resting, he begins to think that now that he is a cook, he will be able to please humans with his delicious food. But upon seeing his claws, he understands that this is never going to happen, since whereas before he was a baby dragon, and was quite cute, now he possesses a diabolical appearance, so he probably will not succeed. He then begins to curse the divine voice because it deceived him with this evolution. Meanwhile, in the village tavern, an elderly man inebriated with Tamira, who saw Douglas wandering through the forest, recounts that he did not see him clearly, but it appeared as though he was murmuring something. Arin then tells him to stop speaking nonsense, since he was presumably quite drunk, although Vals comments that on that occasion, he was sober. Arin notes that Miria is a bit distressed, and for that reason, requests her not to blame herself, since what occurred was not her fault. She responds that she is fine, and immediately afterward bids farewell, but we already know she is going to do something foolish. And now, in another scene, we see Miria, who is experiencing regret, because she wants to enter the forest alone to look for Douglas, who is supposedly alive, but I do not know about that. I think she should not trust everything she hears, even less so coming from a drunkard. Muriel then responds that if he remains alive, why on earth has he not returned to the village? And she does not know how to explain it, but states that if it is that dangerous, they can all go together. But Muriel refuses to place the villagers in danger, and Miria apologizes to Muriel, and upon seeing her like this, she requests her to calm down, since she will ask the guild to investigate the situation. And Miria apologizes for insisting so much, but she wants to see her dear friend once again. The following day, the dragon is drinking a bit of water, peacefully and very happily, since he thinks that if he continues to evolve in this manner, he will obtain anthropomorphosis, but I think he is merely being deceived by the divine voice indeed. Nevertheless, he ends up seeing a small puddle that is moving. He thinks it is a monster, and since it does not appear very strong, it is perfect for accumulating experience. But upon attempting to view its status, his vision distorts, and he experiences a very severe headache. And at that moment, the status check rises to level 4. His vision ends up improving slightly, and upon seeing something in the statistics of the monster, he panics and wonders what is going on. The strange creature extends itself rapidly, but the dragon runs for his life. A while later, upon finding himself in a safe zone, he wonders what on earth that was. And I think it was probably a highly overpowered slime. He was able to note its statistics, but he realized that it had nothing special, so it is best to leave it in peace and search for another prey. What if that one happened to be Rimuru Tempest? One never knows, after all. As he advances through the forest, he encounters a strange vase, which could end up being quite useful for storing some fruit. However, upon picking it up, the vase attacks, since it happens to be a monster. This is basically a pot tortoise, and it is highly resistant because none of the dragon's attacks have any effect. Instead, they merely end up healing it. He thinks that it is probably a land tortoise and possibly does not know how to swim, and therefore, the best way to defeat it is by throwing it into the water. After a Machiavellian laugh, he launches it into the river, and upon defeating it, he secures 36 experience points, in addition to a bonus from his title of Walking Egg, which allows him to rise to level 15. But he also gains a title of Infamous King, and the Path of Evil ends up rising to level 3. To make matters worse, he is rapidly surrounded by a group of pot tortoises. He quickly understands that the one he threw and ended up calling its allies, and now all of them are together. Gathering, they create a sort of fusion, or a pillar of stacked vases. Nothing very flashy to tell the truth. The dragon cannot believe this, and therefore he simply leaps, and with a powerful strike, he destroys all of them. Since he has now leveled up, and is much stronger, he also acquires the meteor attack skill. And with all those pot tortoises defeated, he secures nearly 600 experience points, in addition to a substantial amount of additional experience from the title of Walking Egg, which takes him from level 15 to level 30. His flight skill rises to level 2, and he is very happy because he gained a lot of benefits by defeating this entire group. He laments, however, because he wanted the vases, and they end up breaking when he defeats them, but that is no impediment for him to carry one along with him. While walking through the forest, he laments because, despite being at this level, he still cannot utilize anthropomorphosis, and there are 10 levels remaining to reach his next evolution. However, as he advances through the forest, he hears some footsteps, and for that reason, he hides to observe the overall situation better. He notes how a strange bear is walking through the forest. He feels that something does not add up, and therefore he attempts to view its statistics. But since he is too far away, he cannot do so. The divine voice, however, tells him that at least he can view the details of its species, and the dragon attempts to view them and discovers that it is a monster, a clay bear. It is of rank D+, which means it is quite powerful and possesses high regeneration. The dragon understands that this monster is in the same rank as him, which makes him wonder if he will have a chance to defeat it if he exerts himself enough. But the reality behind his motivation is that since this creature is a clay bear, when he defeats it, he will be able to utilize that very clay to manufacture some furniture for his home. It is then that he begins to follow it stealthily, and upon seeing the perfect opportunity, he executes a surprise attack. But the monster reacts very quickly. The dragon realizes that that thing cannot truly be considered a bear, and the monster advances against him. But the dragon evades and counterattacks, being surprised to see that he reduced a significant amount of health points with his strike. But this clay bear has a great regeneration capacity, and therefore it heals itself very quickly. The dragon wonders what he should do, since with his current level, he cannot defeat it with a single blow. Currently, his strongest skill is the meteor attack, which he has just learned, but there is no way he could carry that monster and fly, so his best option is to attack it constantly with his rolling skill, like Sonic. Unfortunately, the clay bear regenerates far too fast, but our little dragon here is clever, so he has an idea. If he can manage to make this bear exhaust all of its mana, he will be able to secure his victory. The minor detail is that the clay bear, with a roar, creates a sandstorm, and when it dissipates, we see that the bear now possesses spike armor on its back. The hero complains because now he will not be able to attack it with his rolling skill. And that is just how it is. Sonic's weakness is always some spikes. But he realizes that the monster consumed a massive amount of mana to invoke this spike armor, and at that point, the bear begins to attack him with the clay spikes. And the dragon notes that as these parts separate from its body, they basically fall apart while the monster continues attacking, whereas the dragon prepares to evade. Upon understanding how the monster's attack operates, he advances against it and tears off an arm, confirming that the parts severed from its main body basically melt away. He then molds the piece he tore off to create a ball, and together with it, he advances directly with his meteor attack. He manages to shatter the bear, and thus he acquires 150 experience points, which are doubled thanks to his title, taking him from level 30 to level 33, and the divine voice notifies him that he has obtained the Bone Breaker skill. The dragon thinks it was probably due to the manner in which he attacked it, although now the most important matter is to obtain the clay. It is for this reason that in his cave, with the clay already molded, he leaves it placed in the kiln and heads out to search for a bit of food. Once in the forest, he secures a lightning mushroom of rank E, a mushroom that absorbs nutrients from the trees around it, and as much as it is highly flavorful and delicious on account of everything it absorbs, it also possesses a paralyzing poison. The dragon throws it away because he does not possess paralysis resistance, and he is grateful that his appraisal now contains so many details. Shortly after, he attempts to appraise a highly enormous flower, but it is a carnivorous flower that almost devours him. He manages to slice it, and the divine voice informs him that it is a carnivorous flower of rank C, which devours animals, but it cannot digest salt. For this reason, salt accumulates in the white portion of the root. The dragon becomes very happy because salt is the key to cooking, and he does not intend to miss this opportunity. Meanwhile, near the village, we see how Miria is deeply convicted. Despite all the reprimands and warnings, she decides to go search for Douglas on her own. She remembers what the inebriated elderly man had told her, and although she does not know it to be true, she does not want to lose hope that he remains alive, since she herself feels irresponsible for not having stopped them when she should have done so. If there is a slight possibility that Douglas remains alive, she must do everything possible to find him. At that moment, an egg-eating caterpillar advances against her, but she manages to defeat it easily and continues on her way. For his part, our beloved little dragon is very happy upon encountering a massive mushroom. This one, according to his analysis, is quite tasty, and he begins to savor the dishes he could prepare with it. But he notes another type of highly peculiar fungus, and upon appraising it, he discovers that it is at rank A. The divine voice informs him that this mushroom is extremely valuable, and if cultivated successfully, it could revive the economy of a decaying nation. The dragon then begins to fantasize, although when the divine voice also comments that it is a hallucinogenic mushroom that provokes intense euphoria, and that 500 years ago, it was discovered that it could be crushed and mixed with other substances of highly questionable origin to make it even more addictive. The dragon then rapidly burns that thing, causing his hero title to rise to level 2. After that, he obtains another species, a highly valuable one of rank B. This is a spice that enhances aroma and whets the appetite, and in its time, it was considered the most popular spice. Without losing any time, he gathers it rapidly. Meanwhile, for her part, Miria continues entering even deeper into the forest. She understands that it is highly dangerous to continue advancing, and for that reason, she prefers to walk around the perimeter of the village, and if she secures nothing, she will return. A while later, at night, the dragon observes the luminous mushroom, which is perfect to be used as a lamp. Soon he is very excited to see how everything will turn out. Upon seeing that everything turned out perfectly well, he goes to cook, making a stew of mushrooms, vegetables, and meat. Right after eating, he becomes thrilled because the salt indeed makes an enormous difference. He manufactures some Chinese or Japanese chopsticks. I do not know where this comes from, and enjoys his food like never before, securing the title of Master Cook, and his cooking level rises to 2. He notes that the bowl is a little bit inconvenient, plus he spilled some, which is why he plans to manufacture another one. In addition to crafting a spoon as well, he wants to remodel his shelter with some bricks, which allows him to obtain the title of ceramic artisan. Soon on the following day, on the other hand, we see how a carriage heads toward the forest, and upon arriving at its destination, we meet the two adventurers whose task is to investigate the forest of Noah. The blonde is named Meldia, and the other one, I do not know what her name is because they have not introduced her yet. And returning to our dragon, he returns to his shelter with that day's food, and then he begins to prepare the wolves, removing their meat and pelts. Right after, he goes to take a look at the dried meat he was preparing, but he becomes infuriated upon seeing how those wretched monkeys are eating them. He thinks that he must do something quickly so that those sons of a gun stop eating his dried meat, which is why he has the brilliant idea to hang poisoned dried meat. He then begins to prepare the poisons while smiling Machiavellianly, stating that those stupid monkeys will taste the meat that he will leave to soak in that mixture of poison. A while later, while he is gathering some materials, he realizes that he can almost distinguish with the naked eye whether a wild plant is poisonous or not. Upon heading to a field of poisonous flowers to improve his poison, he marvels at seeing that these flowers are beautiful and feels that he should decorate the exterior of his shelter. However, a very peculiar monster appears in front of him, and upon inspecting it, he discovers that its name is the Poison Princess Lacerda. Its skills consist of an absurd repertoire of poisons, and at that moment, the lizard starts running. Suddenly, a clay spike falls onto the spot, and this causes the dragon to become distracted. The lizard takes advantage of this to advance against him. He quickly ends up distancing himself while the effect of the poison activates rapidly. Since he ended up taking a poisonous hit, his resistance increases to level 4, but the poison is so potent that he cannot even move. The dragon even attempts to look for the monster quickly, but the poison impedes him and collapses him to the ground, while we see how the monster, on the branch of a tree, merely observes him, smiling broadly. The dragon observes that the poison afflicting him is a special poison, and a highly severe one, since not even the skill to view statistics can provide specific information regarding this poison. He feels overwhelmed by this power and wonders what on earth he should do, since ever since he has been collecting materials, he has not obtained a single plant that could provide him with protection against the poison. But upon seeing the statistics of the lizard, he realizes that it is a highly astute monster. It basically poisons its prey and then leaves, and when the poison has taken effect, it returns to have its little banquet. It produces this poison after ingesting highly poisonous materials, but its bodily fluids also serve as an antidote, which it utilizes to negotiate when it is captured. The dragon understands that he has no alternative but to capture it if he wishes to save himself. But the first thing is that he needs to know where it is, and therefore, with the little mobility that remains to him, he begins to run from that place to escape the lizard's field of vision, so that in this manner, it will have to pursue him. His plan works well, and upon locating it, he goes after it. Although he notes how the scoundrel also knows how to utilize rolling, apparently, he is not the only one who is like Sonic. He plans to lead it toward the cliff, and in the process, his rolling skill ends up reaching level 5. This is basically a perfect fit. Nevertheless, the lizard fires a certain type of clay at him, astonishing the dragon upon seeing that it can fire things while rolling. But he has no intention of letting that cursed thing escape with its life, and when he is ready to fall from the cliff, he takes a massive leap. In this manner, he manages to land a solid blow on this lizard. Now it is only a matter of time to obtain the antidote, but this lizard almost falls into the river, and the dragon has no intention of allowing that to happen, because if that thing dies, he will be doomed. So he rapidly leaps down there to rescue it. Upon catching it, he uses his dragon breath to be able to return back up. The lizard is surprised to see that he saved it, and both of them find themselves safe and sound. But the dragon can no longer endure its poison, and therefore ends up passing out. Elsewhere, Miria continues in her search for Douglas, although on that day she has not had any luck either. And at that moment, she hears how Muriel is calling her, and she rapidly goes to meet with the girl. Muriel asks where she was, since she went to her house and did not find her. Furthermore, it has been several days since she has seen her frequently, and for that reason, she asks what she is doing. Muriel lies, recounting that she had a cold and therefore spent some time bedridden, and now she feels much better, which is why she went out to take a walk. Muriel merely listens to her and reminds her that she is forbidden from entering the forest. Miria just goes with the flow and states that she would never do that, and what a little liar this girl is. Muriel then reveals that the guild informed her that adventurers were coming to the village, and for that reason, she does not need to worry, since they will take charge of the search for Douglas. After telling her this, she requests her to accompany her to do some shopping. While they are doing their shopping, we see the dragon waking up and wondering where on earth he is. Although precisely at that moment, the lizard appears before him, the dragon gets frightened, thinking that the cursed thing was waiting for him to die. Although he shortly realizes that he is no longer poison, she basically extracted his poison, and right after that, she states that after a long battle of blood, sweat, and tears, she realized that they are soulmates. The lizard smiles and embraces him, and the hero mentions that now that he is looking at her better, he actually thinks she is quite cute. A while later, they go together to the cave where the dragon is cooking, and upon finishing, he serves a plate of food. The lizard eats delightfully, while he thinks that it is very nice to be able to eat with company. Shortly after, he realizes that neither of them possesses a name. All they have are their class names. The lizard's class is Poison Princess Lacerda, and his is Abyssal Dragon of Destructive Chaos and whatnot, absolutely absurd. It is then that the lizard approaches him, and he asks her to forget about that, since he will continue to call her Black Lizard, and she begins to rub against him. Amidst this, however, she ends up noticing a barrel that the dragon is preparing and goes to sink her teeth into it. Our beloved dragon even gets worried, but he shortly remembers that black lizards are accustomed to consuming poisons to strengthen their bodies. That vase of poisonous abominations is a delicacy to her. Seeing her eating that poison with such enthusiasm, he becomes curious and tastes it, but he ends up poisoned and feels the peculiarities of that monstrosity. Fortunately, however, his poison resistance rises from level 4 to level 5. On the following day, they begin to work as a team to start hunting. In this manner, the hunt becomes much easier, and soon they go to eat some coconuts to finish passing the day wonderfully well. At night, they return to the cave, and he is quite frightened, since he remembers that that tiny, cute little thing possesses an absurd poison. So he shortly requests the black lizard not to bite him while he is sleeping. Nevertheless, he finds himself much more comfortable now that he has her company. And on the next day, they go to collect materials. He ends up tasting one of his spices, but he was not very interested in it, whereas the black lizard ended up liking it quite a bit, and she managed to sniff out a very delicious odor. Although upon arriving at the source of the scent, they discovered that that thing stinks of death. The voice of God informs the dragon that it is a Candida cadaverius mushroom of rank B, which emits a corpse-like odor, and it possesses a very potent poison, but practically no animal eats it due to its foul smell. None, except for the black lizard. And speaking of her, she is highly enthusiastic about the poison, although the dragon does not intend to allow her to waste time with that thing. Without losing any time, he burns the mushroom, and the lizard begins to weep and gives him a beating. But the little dragon warns that he will compensate her later with another poisonous plant, one that will not stink like a corpse. At that moment, however, the black lizard activates her clay pistol, causing the dragon to think that she is quite irritated. But she fires toward the forest, and from it emerges a strange two-headed dog. But what is most worrying about it is not its two heads, but rather the statistics it possesses, which are highly overpowered. In addition to it having skills such as gravity, the little dragon highly doubts that he can defeat it. But escaping is not an option, since the two-headed creature also counts on the skills of tenacity and marking. These skills serve to track him, so the best option is to fight as a team. For this reason, the black lizard goes to hide to wait for a perfect moment, while the dragon advances against it to draw its attention. Although his attacks do not have much of an effect, he is rapidly affected by the monster's gravity, becoming incapable of moving. The lizard finally uses her clay pistol, managing to hit the creature's blue head, which deactivates the gravity. Basically, the creature has an on and off switch in each head. Continuing, the dragon ends up taking advantage of the moment and attacks with his fire breath. Although for a moment it appears to be working, every wretched monster in that forest seems to possess some regeneration skill. But thanks to this, the dragon understands that the angry face attacks physically, while the crying face uses magic. It is then that the crying face begins to prepare its gravity magic, but the dragon does not intend to allow that to happen, since this attack appears much more dangerous than the other. He then rapidly advances against it, but the other head stops him with a bite. He has no intention of surrendering, however, and with a powerful strike to the crying face, he interrupts the activation of the magic. The black lizard takes advantage of the moment to inject her poison, and the two-headed creature rapidly returns to utilizing recovery. But the poison is so potent that the regeneration is completely useless. They claim victory, but they did not count on the fact that the angry face would tear off the crying head so that the poison would not affect the entire body. This makes the dragon think that he does not intend to opt for an evolution that grants him two heads. Although now that it has one less head, it should be a little easier, but it is not easy at all, because the creature is now completely enraged and has utilized the sacrifice skill. We see how the amputated head begins to go after the lizard. She rolls for her life, running just like Sonic, while the little dragon tries to assist her, but the other one stops him. Irritated, he advances against the hound, unleashing a powerful strike to launch it into the heavens. Catching it up in the heights, he utilizes his Bone Breaker skill, completely shattering the hound and leveling up the Bone Breaker skill, which rises to level 2. Without losing any time, he rapidly goes in search of the lizard. He prays that she is alright, since only a few days have passed since they met, but they have already done so many things together that currently, she is his only friend in that world. He then prays to God that the black lizard is safe, since he no longer cares about the human transformation. He only hopes that his friend is alright. However, upon seeing a puddle of blood, he panics. Exactly at that moment, we see the lizard dragging herself, completely wounded, while we see how the other head advances against her. But the little dragon intervenes, and with boundless fury, he completely shatters the remaining head. Shortly after, he picks up the black lizard and is relieved that she is alright. She is somewhat injured and licks his face, while the voice of God announces that he has attained level 37. The little dragon tells it to shut up, since the only thing he wants is for his friend to be alright. As long as he remains with her, he does not care about anything else. He does not want to hear about human transformation or anything of the sort. But right after he says this, that wretched divine voice states that he can now transform into a human whenever he wishes. The dragon is left in disbelief. Meanwhile, on the other side, in the village, Muriel possesses an ancient book of monsters. She retrieved it from the library so that Miria could take a look. She even browses through it, and the first monster she sees is an egg-eating caterpillar. But since the book features very ancient text, she cannot read it. Miria, however, comments that it is that creature of rank F, a monster that even she could defeat. But rank D monsters are a different story, since one must be a highly trained and capable adventurer to have any hope of defeating them. It is then that we see how she is looking at the two-headed creature, a rank B monster. This is a beast that only heroes and holy saints can defeat. At that moment, we see how the adventurers from earlier have finally arrived at the village, while Miria asks Muriel what rank the Earth Dragon is, and she reveals that according to the book, it is a rank C monster, but she heard it can become much stronger after evolving, and could easily devour any human. For that reason, she says that she and everyone in the village must not enter the forest. Miria understands, and right at that point, the adventurers from earlier enter the room. With this information, we can see that our beloved little dragon is already becoming quite strong. But first of all, we are going to see how our adventurers arrived there. They were passing through the forest, obviously on their way to the village, where the blonde's companion asks her why. If the mission is rank C, she brought her along, since it would have been better to wait for the others. But she responds that it is precisely because the mission is quite difficult that she brought the girl, since if they have to flee with the girl, it will be much faster. Her companion does not know what she is talking about, as she does not know if she is bait, or if it is because she runs quite fast. Melkia says that she is only joking and responds that even though the mission is rank C, it is only to search for a missing person, not to fight any monsters. By the way, this beast girl is named Juno, and both Melkia and she appear to be on a rather suspicious mission to search for someone who should be dead. Now back in the present, Melkia comments to Muriel that it is quite rare to see an elf among humans. She reveals that in reality, she is a half-elf. Miria enters the room and gives her a cup of tea, and Muriel requests that she please leave them alone. Upon leaving the chamber, Muriel says that she does not want that little one to know the details of this mission. She then begins to recount the details of the mission, stating that the person they have to look for is named Douglas and used to be in Miria's group until they fought against the rock dragon. After that, they never heard from him again. In the request, it was mentioned that he should be dead, because that is the only thing they can expect after all this time. But the problem is that Miria feels so guilty that she continues entering the forest with the hope of finding him, and the mission they have is to find proof that he is dead. After giving a few more pieces of data to the girls, they leave to begin the mission, while for his part, our beloved little dragon is tending to the lizard's wounds and leaving her to rest in the cave. It is then that he begins to review his statistics after having leveled up, and upon taking a close look, he discovers that what the divine voice told him was not a lie. Now he can transform into a human whenever he pleases, which is why he decides to do so at that very moment, since even though the poor thing does not want to admit it, he is dying to do things like visiting the village. And most importantly, seeing Miria once again. The problem is that if he transforms into a human, he has absolutely no idea what the next step would be, since as much as he wishes to go to the town, he does not want to be separated from his little love, the black lizard. Therefore, he wonders if he will be able to reach a middle ground, in which he can live about 3 days as a human and about 3 days as a dragon. While his head continues to spin around the matter, he ends up becoming rather excited, and to put an end to this uncertainty, he activates the transformation, only to receive a wretched surprise that this transformation is a complete sham. He looks more like a reptilian, and he asks the divine voice what on earth this transformation is, and if by any chance this is all there is to it. As always, the wretched divine voice states that it cannot answer nor provide many details, and he thinks that the universe has once again sought to screw him over, not only because it has buried his hopes once more, but also because when he reviews his statistic, he realizes that both his attack and defense levels have been reduced by half. Without further ado, he reverts to his original transformation. Meanwhile, as for the girls, they continue to advance through the forest, defeating every kind of creature that crosses their path. Eventually, it grows dark, and they still continue without finding any trace of Douglas. Melkia mentions that it is time to return, although precisely at that moment, they find themselves face to face with the little dragon's cave. They begin to investigate despite the danger, since after all, this is precisely the type of clues they ought to find, and therefore they step into the interior of the cave, where they are marveled to see all the spices that the little dragon possesses. But it is then that our beloved black lizard appears. Melkia warns Juno that she has to be extremely careful, since a single bite from that creature can simply kill you. But the lizard ends up catching the scent of the dragon and departs from the cave. And now we see them reuniting with him. He is very nervous because he can see how those girls entered his cave. He becomes thrilled thinking that they will certainly like his cave very much. But he thinks that it is also an opportunity to make friends, so he decides to give his human transformation a second chance, praying that this time he manages to obtain a slightly more humanoid and improved version. But this goes terribly wrong. Even so, he introduces himself to the girls with a beautiful smile from ear to ear, attempting to appear less threatening. The result is that he looks more like an image taken out of a horror movie, and they almost soil themselves with fear. Melkia gathers sufficient courage to attack him, and with a hammer strike, they send him flying, and without losing any time, they take advantage of the opportunity to escape. Thereupon, the poor dragon continues to murmur once again, since he did not plan to cause them any harm. But this is futile. The girls cannot believe that there are plague dragons living in this forest, since the warnings revolved around the rock dragons, not a creature as dangerous as this one. It is then that she asks if perhaps she intends to continue with the investigation, or if they will return to the village. Melkia responds that neither of the two things will happen, since now the time has arrived to call for reinforcements to be able to finalize this mission as is proper. On the following day, the dragon resumes his peaceful daily routine, and meanwhile, he thinks that despite him finally achieving his human transformation, the events of the previous day were anything but positive. The only good thing is that the black lizard remains in his life. And speaking of the little one, he requests her to utilize her skills to poison the meat, since in this manner, he will let it drop out there. However, he requests a poison that possesses neither odor nor color, so that the monkeys end up eating the food without any problem whatsoever. Automatically, the lizard fills a jar with her best poison, completely devoid of color and odor. It easily passes unnoticed as water, and thanks to this, he lays out the first batch. But this ends up taking a little bit longer than he anticipated for the monkeys to fall into the trap. Though the effect ultimately works, he then takes advantage of the fact that the monkeys are distracted attempting to save their companion to attack, and the dragon possesses every chance of winning. But the matter becomes complicated when the small ones call for reinforcements. Their powerful whistle echoes throughout the entire forest, and the dragon thinks that depending on the quantity, he could defeat them. But in front of them appears the Alpha, the leader of the pack, who in addition to possessing attributes similar to those of a dragon, he also possesses support skills that strengthen both himself and his followers. Without wasting any time, they demonstrate exactly how strong they are. The dragon even attempts to attack quickly, but the monkeys create a massive wall to protect themselves. As if that were not enough, they also begin to attack at a very high speed, which is far superior to how they performed before. The dragon is at a clear disadvantage, so the black caterpillar intervenes. Regrettably, the poor little creature is still not in her best condition, and the dragon is perfectly aware of this fact. It is then that he asks the divine voice to point out everything it knows about these creatures, and he discovers that the huge monkey is a D+ rank monster, the most advanced evolution of the smaller monkeys. However, the most impressive part is that the only way to reach this rank is by evolving through battles, which means that this big guy over there has a very impressive track record. He must have defeated several stronger creatures within the forest. For a change, the information from God is not of much use. He even remembers an interesting detail that he noticed in his skill list, which is that the giant monkey has the power to communicate telepathically. In other words, he possesses intelligence, so there must be some way to negotiate with him. Bearing that in mind, the dragon takes the poisoned monkey as a hostage. He uses his provocation skill, which is enough to make the Alpha himself communicate mentally. He reveals that he is surprised that he knows about his skills. Without wasting any time, the dragon warns that his companion is on the verge of dying, but his friend can provide an antidote if he agrees to withdraw. This sounds like a reasonable deal, but the giant monkey does not see it that way, since they prove to be far too big of a threat to be ignored. He is willing to make certain sacrifices with the objective of defeating them. The dragon continues to insist, but seeing that there is no room for negotiations, he decides to challenge him to a duel directly. This is a sacred ritual for the monkey species, and it ends up being utilized to resolve conflicts between clans, with strict rules that can be applied even to face other species. Regardless, the most important rules dictate that nobody can interfere until there is a winner. The black caterpillar applies an antidote to the poisoned monkey, and when the rest of the monkeys withdraw, they end up taking her with them. The giant monkey does not play around. He straight up tells the dragon that they will keep the black caterpillar to ensure she does not intervene, but if he manages to defeat him, then he will set her free. But of course, only if he manages to win. Because of this, the dragon feels an even greater pressure. The battle quickly begins, and the giant is going 100% on the offensive, while the dragon is merely trying to dodge and waiting for the perfect opportunity to attack. He then begins to spin desperately, even though fleeing from a battle is a direct insult to the ritual. The monkey then warns that he will not allow him to continue like this for very long, and the dragon, fearing the consequences, summons his courage. He utilizes his rotating tail technique followed by a well-executed combo. He manages to significantly reduce the enemy's HP, far more than he had initially imagined. It is then that he begins to feel motivated, and he intends to continue attacking. But the giant monkey does not make things easy for him. He activates his extreme mode, in which all of his mana increases and his agility increases as well, managing to make his speed increase to drastic levels. He begins to match a dragon in its frenzied mode, which results in him giving our little dragon a severe beating, and he cannot even manage to escape. He understands that long-distance attacks are completely ruled out, so he quickly begins to provoke him so they can finish this in a pure fistfight. In that regard, it seemed as though the giant had the advantage, but as the minutes pass, it is obvious that both of them are about to reach their absolute limit. Knowing that there is not much time left, the dragon decides to gamble everything on a single attack, one so powerful that the giant ends up falling to the ground. The divine voice announces that his dragon punch has risen to level 3, but the only thing he can think about is that he won. However, even while lying on the ground, the giant counters, knocking both of them completely unconscious, but the divine voice announces that he managed to level up, which means that he defeated his opponent, thereby earning the title of clan chief. Upon waking up, he wonders where exactly he is, although at that moment the black caterpillar appears, who is very emotional to see that he has finally awakened. He realizes that he is inside the cave, and upon checking his attributes, he notices that he leveled up, and understands that he won the battle. Although he cannot comprehend how the black caterpillar managed to bring him to the cave, she is slightly uncomfortable, and upon turning to his right, the dragon realizes that there is a whole bunch of monkeys inside his cave, and he panics upon thinking that these monkeys came to avenge their leader. But the monkeys are actually quite emotional, and they do not look vindictive at all. Upon checking his skills once more, the dragon realizes that he is now the big boss, which means that he is the leader of all the monkeys. The black caterpillar is completely infuriated, but the dragon asks her to calm down, since the monkeys do not want to fight. Quite the contrary, the fact that they are there is actually very beneficial for them, since he is now the leader, and he can use these monkeys as errand boys. He can make them do all the heavy lifting. Although the black caterpillar remains highly unconvinced, in another scene, we see the monkeys bringing a bunch of apples to our beloved dragon, and he is surprised to see the attributes that they yield. He acknowledges that they are very good, and this comment ends up making the black caterpillar jealous. The monkeys signal that they want to eat the meat, and the dragon permits them to do so, and soon thinks that it is not necessary to go out hunting on this day. So the best thing to do is to go replenish his reserves. The detail is that upon trying to do so, one of the monkeys stares fixedly at the dragon, and at that moment, he has a brilliant idea to take advantage of the monkeys. Since they love dried meat, the best course of action will be to teach them so that they are the ones who cook. With that being said, the dragon sets out to teach him the preparation of dried meat. He basically teaches how to cut, season, mix, and let it rest, and upon finishing the lesson, the monkey goes to cook. However, the dragon feels that something is not going very well. He quickly notices that something is very strange, and asks what is going on with the black caterpillar. But we all know, the dragon's wife is infuriated, and the dragon speaks to her, and wonders what he should do now, since there is no reason to go out hunting. After thinking for a bit, he understands that he now has more roommates, so the best thing to do would be to manufacture more jars. In another scene, he is preparing clay when the monkey approaches him. He asks what on earth he is doing, and the dragon explains what he is trying to do, and the monkey wants him to teach him. The dragon remembers that the monkeys possess a skill called agile, and furthermore, they have hands with long fingers, so if he teaches him to make jars, it might be that they can do it better than him. Without wasting much time, he begins to manufacture them and take them to the kiln, and he informs the little monkey that now it is his turn. Without wasting any time, the monkey tries, while the dragon goes out to get some fresh air. But just then he runs into his beloved black caterpillar, who is kneading the clay. The dragon comments that with her tiny little legs, she will not be able to do that kind of thing, and she goes away crying, while the dragon is left wondering if she wanted to manufacture pottery. But if she really wanted that, she only had to say so, and this miserable dragon still has not realized that the poor thing just wants to be useful to him. Shortly after that, he brings a shovel and a hammer to the other monkeys, so that in this manner they can take charge of expanding the cave and keeping it in order. They accept his orders, while the dragon comments that they are very good at using tools. But unfortunately, the black caterpillar overhears him, and she feels horrible and very jealous upon feeling useless. Meanwhile, on the other side, Juno and Melchi are waiting for their companions, Daz and Ramana, so that in this manner they can finish the job. But when they get there to that cave, they are going to have a little surprise. Juno mentions that she cannot believe that they have run into the plague dragon, and Melchi comments that this cave was very suspicious, and definitely something is happening in this forest. Returning to the dragon, the black caterpillar wakes him up desperately, but he cannot get up, since he is covered in monkeys on top of him, so the best thing to do is to surrender and go back to sleep. However, the black caterpillar becomes enraged and ends up poisoning one of the monkeys, which causes the others to wake up startled. The dragon can finally get up and observes what is going on, and upon seeing the state of the monkey, he understands that the black caterpillar poisoned him. She is very proud of what she did, but the dragon comments that she went too far and asks her to provide an antidote. Now, sometime later, the little monkey is detoxified, and the caterpillar remains annoyed. The dragon realizes that she is annoyed with the monkeys. They had taken her with them, so he thinks that she is angry because of that. However, the caterpillar points to the jars, and the dragon understands why she is so annoyed, and apologizes for not paying attention to her. Therefore, he says that he will make it up to her, and informs her that they will go hunting together on this day, and the caterpillar finally smiles. Meanwhile, in another part, Miria thinks that a few days have already passed since the adventurers went into the forest, and they should have returned by now. But absolutely nothing is known about them, so there comes a moment for her to start participating. She apologizes to her friend since she is going to disobey her, but it is not as if it were the first time. Returning to the dragon, while they advance through the forest, he thinks that he only needs one more level to evolve again. Furthermore, he also wants many other little things for his cave. However, we see how the black caterpillar is very downcast, and he asks her what is going on. Soon we discover that it is because a bunch of monkeys also went with them, and it was supposed to be a special day for all of them. The dragon is very happy, since the monkeys have the tools, and in this manner they are quite strong, and he wishes to see how strong they have become with them. He asks the black caterpillar to warn him when she sees a monster, but she remains quiet and continues to advance in silence. I believe this miserable dragon has learned nothing. He keeps wondering what is going on, and despite him being a total blockhead, I understand him. Sometimes it is better for people to simply say what is going on, rather than simply expecting you to guess. Anyway, the caterpillar ends up detecting a monster, and the dragon gets excited, because these wolves are perfect for a warm-up. The detail is that before they can do anything, the monkeys intervene, causing the little one to become irritated once again, because every time she tries to do something with her beloved darling, they are interrupted. The dragon, for his part, is only happy to see that the monkeys have become very strong, but seeing this makes the black caterpillar infuriate even more, and she simply walks away. He goes after her, and meanwhile we see Miria, who is in a deeper part of the forest, and she feels that it is the perfect moment to return. It is at that moment that she observes someone, and then begins to pursue him through the forest. But we see a mysterious eye observing her. Upon entering even deeper into the forest, she arrives at a certain thicket, where a bunch of eyes begin to appear from the darkness. It is then that on the other side we see the dragon apologizing to the black caterpillar, since he should have paid more attention to her, and not to the monkeys. The black caterpillar observes, and the dragon, wanting to make it up to her, tells her that the next time they go on a hunt, it will be only the two of them. They are going to leave the monkeys in the cave. He asks if that is alright with her, and the little one leaps very happily to hug him, since that is the only thing she wants. The dragon carries her, and tells her that at this moment, she is the most important thing in his life, and even if time passes, that will never change. However, destiny is sometimes a bit cruel, and just at that moment, they hear Maria's scream. And yes, now the true competitor for our beloved dragon's heart has arrived. He recognizes her voice and gets up quickly, thinking that he has to get there to help her. But he wonders what will happen if there are other humans like last time, and he remembers everything he suffered due to humans. The black caterpillar merely observes him somewhat confused, and the dragon asks her to stay there and wait in that location. Without wasting much time, he rolls at his full speed in search of Miria, but we see how the caterpillar follows him closely, and he even asks her to go back and increases his speed, but she also increases hers and ends up crashing against a rock. The dragon runs to her and asks if she is alright, and upon seeing that she still has a good amount of HP remaining, he is relieved. He then tries to leave, but the caterpillar detains him, although he apologizes to her and continues his way, telling her that she is truly very important to him. But despite that, Miria is in danger, and he wants to save her. With this, the title of Petty Hero rises from level 2 to level 3, but we see how the caterpillar became sad and was crying, which causes the title of Evil Dragon to rise from level 3 to level 4. He curses the divine voice, while we see that Miria is completely surrounded. There is a group of wolves called Mara wolves. They are very ugly, and when they are on the verge of converting her into their lunch, the dragon intervenes. Obviously, Miria does not recognize him, and upon trying to see the attributes of the wolves, the divine voice warns that unfortunately it cannot give this information to him. Upon seeing the status window in that state, he thinks that the exact same thing happened with that mysterious slime. The wolves advance against him, but the dragon counters with his flame breath technique. With a few good blows, he manages to knock down some wolves, but the detail is that this is not over yet, because they possess a third eye. And with this third eye, they can send information to the rest of the pack. The dragon approaches Miria, and she panics upon seeing him, and begs for him to stay away from her. And this ends up breaking our little dragon's heart. Therefore, he desperately tries to communicate with her. But just then, the divine voice announces that he gained 36 experience points, plus the bonus for the walking egg title, achieving double the amount, which causes him to level up, reaching the maximum level. And in this manner, as we know, he can simply advance in his evolution. However, the dragon tells the divine voice to shut its mouth, since this is not the moment, and Miria is observing him and ends up remembering the small baby dragon. It is then that out of nowhere she begins to roar, trying to imitate the small dragon when he was a baby, and he wonders what on earth she is doing, but soon he realizes that she is trying to imitate the moment in which he presented himself to her. Without wasting any time, he does the exact same thing, creating a very cute moment, which is interrupted by the remainder of the wolves. The little dragon, prioritizing Miria's safety, kneels down and asks her to climb up, and upon doing so, he runs away from the location, because whatever happens, he will not permit anything to happen to her. Meanwhile, Gregory warns Marielle that they should search for Miria throughout the entire village, but this cursed girl does not appear, and Marielle understands that this girl has ventured into the forest. Gregory offers to go look for her, but Marielle says that she will do it herself in his place, and asks him to go take another turn around the village, because it could be that she is around there as well, and Gregory follows her instructions. Meanwhile, Melchi reunites with her group and warns that before they enter the forest, first they must meet with their client so that she can approve the reorganization of the group. For his part, the dragon continues running for his life, or rather, for the life of this little girl. The detail is that the more they flee, the more wolves follow him. The dragon thinks for a moment about putting an end to all of this, and upon taking an adequate distance, he asks Miria to wait for him, and quickly he goes to fight against the wolves. He uses his dragon breath technique and incinerates 3, and soon with his claws, he annihilates the last one, and defeats him very easily. He then wonders why they followed him when they could not defeat him, and this seems very suspicious, but he does not think too much about it, and soon advances together with Miria. However, soon we see that inside the third eye of one of the wolves, something very strange appears. Meanwhile, they advance. He then wonders what he should do, whether he should take her to the village like last time, but he remembers that last time it did not go very well. The guys basically attacked him. Therefore, he begins to wonder why Miria ventured into the forest all alone when she knows that this place is very dangerous. And he feels very frustrated because it would be enough to simply ask her. But there is that cursed language barrier, meaning he cannot communicate with the girl. Just then, he feels that Miria hugs him, so probably she must be thanking him. But his short happy moment was interrupted by the divine voice, which asks if he wants to see the evolutions. He complains because this voice always ruins his cute moments, but he agrees to see the evolutions nonetheless. Upon taking a good look, he notices that there are 4 variants. The first is the rolling dragon, which specializes in speed, but the dragon is not very convinced by this since he does not want to spend the entire day rolling around. Furthermore, there is also the dark dragon human, a lower ranking dragon human, practically a demi-human. But after what the dragon experienced with that other transformation, I think he will not want that very much. In third place is the arch dragon, a dragon with a light attribute, which possesses a great intellect and is capable of using white magic, and the dragon feels that this is the right choice. However, he looks at the fourth evolution, and it is the Jormungandr, a dragon with the appearance of a massive serpent, whose scales possess a lethal poison that destroys everything it passes by, leaving a path of sterility forever. The dragon definitively refuses this transformation because this thing is the #1 enemy of humanity. He wonders what he should be to become stronger and convert himself into someone good. But his thoughts are interrupted by Miria, who points to a waterfall. Upon being there, the dragon thinks that definitively Jormungandr is out of the question. However, he does not know if choosing the dragon human would be good. The best option currently might be the arch-dragon, since he can utilize white magic, and who knows, maybe he could even get along well with humans. While he is thinking about which evolution he should choose, Miria is hydrating herself. Upon seeing that the dragon is somewhat frustrated, she approaches him, and he is quite surprised. He tries to say that he is looking for a way in which he can have a social life in both worlds, and what would be better for socializing than some beers? So it would be very good if they had a beer dragon. It is then that he mentions to Miria that he is on the verge of evolving and asks for her opinion. But obviously, she does not understand anything he is saying. He wonders what he should do to try to communicate. But as idiotic as it may be, this guy has some absurd clause, and he could simply make a drawing, since he can make a jar and everything else. So why couldn't he make a drawing, right? But anyway, Miria communicates with him, at least the way cavemen used to do, and it works, since the dragon manages to listen to what she is saying, and she is introducing herself with her name, and little by little, she points out and names each thing. He manages to hear her somehow, and wonders if this is due to his language skill that has improved. Indeed, it has increased to level 3. And so the day passes, and at nightfall, she tells him that she has been exploring the forest for several days, without Marielle knowing about it. The dragon tries to say that a few days ago, he saw 2 humans spying on his cave, but unfortunately, Miria does not understand anything, because even though he can understand her, it does not mean he knows how to speak. So he basically begins to speak with some nods, and Miria even manages to understand him, and informs him that those 2 are adventurers she hired. Miria then mentions that she is looking for someone named Douglas, and the dragon finally remembers this fellow. He basically knows that he was killed by the small rock dragon, and at that moment, he puts some grass on himself, as if it were a wig. Miria becomes very happy upon seeing that he knows Daz, which means that he was the one who saved her, and she embraces him emotionally. This miserable guy begs forgiveness from the black caterpillar, but it seems he is going to continue along the path of the demi-human. Miria asks for his name, which leaves the dragon somewhat without a baseline, because he does not know what to answer. He then replies that he does not have a name, and Miria asks how she should address him, and the dragon has no idea, since he had never stopped to think about it. Miria asks if by any chance she could give him a name, and upon seeing the dragon's reaction, she becomes worried, but in reality, he is very emotional. As long as she is the one who chooses the name for him, everything is fine. And upon seeing that he is nodding his head yes desperately, she remembers the things she lived through together with him, before and after his evolution, and comments that he is like her hero, and asks what he thinks of the name Illusia. It is the name of her favorite flower, and it is a very strange name. The guy is simply a calamity dragon, and he is going to have the name Illusia. Very nice. The divine voice then asks if he wants to register this name, but it warns that he will only be able to do this once, and he will never be able to change his name again. But since the dragon is completely head over heels for Miria, he simply settles for this name, and it gets registered as Illusia. And in the future, he is going to regret this. It is just like getting a tattoo. You get a tattoo of someone you love, and in the future, you regret it. But anyway, his cute moment was interrupted once again by enormous heavy footsteps. The dragon thinks that the only beast capable of doing that is the rock dragon. Therefore, Miria advances in his place, but quickly they are followed by another Mara wolf. Upon seeing the attributes of the wolf, he notices that a magic restriction appears, which means that the wolf is being controlled. Right in front of them appears another pack of wolves, with an alpha in the center, and on top of it is Douglas, who is being controlled. The dragon observes his attributes, and wonders why he has no skills. He wonders what is going on. But just then, Douglas prepares to attack. Miria begs for him to stop this and hold back. But the dragon, seeing that he almost sent him straight to the grave, intervenes. This miserable long-haired guy attempts to attack the dragon, but he lunges at him, and after the dragon's blow, he falls off the wolf, but desperately holds on to the mysterious jar once again. Without wasting any time, he orders the remainder of the Mara wolves to attack them. And suddenly they hear the footsteps from before once more. The dragon then curses his bad luck, and Miria says that she is hearing the footsteps closer and closer, and finally understands that perhaps it is about the rock dragon. But the long-haired guy mounts the wolf again, and without wasting any time, heads toward the village. The dragon wonders if by any chance he is doing this out of spite, but Miria then reveals what it is that Daz is carrying. It is a rock dragon egg, and if he takes this egg to the village, he will completely destroy everything. Right at that moment, the rock dragon emerges from the forest, and Illusia grabs Miria, and they quickly go in pursuit of that naughty long-haired guy. The detail is that the Mara wolves are not going to permit this, and while they run, Illusia wonders what on earth the long-haired guy did, because he wants to purposely lead the rock dragon to the village. What worries him the most is his capacity to mount monsters. But before he can continue thinking about anything, he understands that he is carrying Miria, so he will not be able to throw off the Mara wolves so easily like that. She knows this, and for that reason asks him to put her down, since that way she can entertain the monsters. And although the dragon knows perfectly well that she would not endure anything against them, yet Miria still insists. In the end, he stops for a brief moment, but ends up taking the monster's attack, only to turn back toward it completely infuriated right after, and deliver a strike that sends it flying into the skies. When the creature is way up in the sky, he simply pulls off an absurd suplex, and after that, he charges against the remainder of the monsters that were heading toward Miria. In the process, Miria also ends up getting hurt, and she begs for him to please go to the village and protect everyone. Illusia, upon seeing her, promises that he will protect the village, but that he will protect her as well. Meanwhile, in the village itself, Gregory asks the young people to go to their homes because it is already getting dark. But not much time passes before, out of nowhere, he hears the roar of the rock dragon. On the other side of the forest, Marielle also hears it, but since she is very far away, she attributes it to something else, and focuses on simply finding Miria before night falls. For their part, Melchai and her group are also inside the forest fighting, and Illusia, our beloved little dragon, is still running desperately with Miria toward the village. It is then revealed to us that the one controlling the naughty long-haired guy is that mysterious slime from before, which is using him as bait to lead the rock dragon to the village, and in this manner, it can achieve its objective of destroying everything completely. On the way to the village, the dragon is relieved to see that Miria is doing well, since he ended up using his healing magic to be able to heal the girl's wounds, and she uses the little magic she has left to heal the dragon's wounds. This miserable little dragon, who contents himself with mere crumbs, thinks that Miria is his ray of sunshine and begins to quicken his pace. I only feel pity for our beloved black caterpillar. In another location, we see that the protection stones are not working properly, and the beasts have begun to enter the village. But Gregory has no intention of permitting that. With a little bit of luck, and with the power of the plot armor, he manages to defeat the monster, but the creature ended up falling right on top of him. When he tries to get out of there, he ends up coming face to face with our beloved Calamity Dragon. He panics, but he is not going to let the guy enter there either. However, our not-so-beloved Miria ends up intervening, warning Gregory that even though he is a Calamity Dragon, he is there to help them. Upon looking at him closer, he realizes that it is the exact same dragon from before, the dragon that this cursed man stabbed. Miria explains that he is a good dragon, and he was the one who saved her the previous time. Gregory is surprised and cannot believe it, and begs the dragon's forgiveness for having stabbed him a while ago. But sincerely, he still gave the dragon very few stabs. If it were anyone else there, they would have given the poor thing at least 800 stabs. Since our beloved little dragon contents himself with mere crumbs, he gets very emotional upon seeing that Gregory is quite understanding. Gregory, for his part, is very surprised to see that the dragon managed to respond to him, and Miria tells him that the dragon is capable of understanding the human language. But they are interrupted by the roar of the rock dragon, and without wasting any more time, Miria asks if he saw the naughty long-haired guy, and he replies that that scoundrel threw a wolf on top of him before fleeing. Miria panics and warns that he is the one guiding the rock dragon to the village, using its egg as bait. They have no time to lose and begin to advance, but Gregory stops them, since his dragon friend with his terrifying appearance, when he arrives at the village, is going to cause a lot of panic. It is then that Illusia asks him to mount, and he even winks at the guy. This little dragon here is a real rogue. The guy has no shame whatsoever. For his part, the long-haired guy finally arrives at the center of the village, and the villagers get very emotional upon seeing that he is still alive, but little do they know what awaits them. A while later, Illusia appears, and as expected, everyone goes into a panic, but even so, Hey ignore it and ask if they have seen the long-haired guy. The villagers reply that he went toward the watchtowers, and the rock dragon is getting closer and closer to the village. It is then that Gregory asks Miria to stay in this place and help the villager. Miria refuses, but Gregory knocks a little bit of sense into her head since the girl is injured, and in this state, she is only going to be a sack of potatoes for the people to keep carrying from one side to the other. It is not going to help much. The best thing she can do at this moment is to evacuate the others, and Illusia affirms that the last thing he wants is to put his beloved Miria in danger. In the end, she ends up accepting, and without wasting any time, Gregory mounts the dragon and leaves. He mentions that he never thought that that small, cute little dragon would convert into the Calamity Dragon, although he understands that monsters evolve to become stronger indeed. After all this disaster is over, he plans to introduce him to all the villagers, since they will probably get along very well with him. The dragon gets emotional because he will finally be able to be accepted, and yes, I am happy for this miserable little dragon, but at the same time, I feel angry since he is abandoning the poor black caterpillar once again. On the other side, we see the clever long-haired rogue killing the villagers and their chickens, instilling fear in everyone who is there. They are wondering what on earth is going on with him, and just then, Gregory arrives and asks the villagers to calm down, since the dragon is their ally. Now the priority is for all of them to get out of this place and stay safe, while he will take charge of the long-haired guy, and he has to do this quickly since the rock dragon is starting to get very close. The villagers then flee for their lives, but there is always a curious little one who ends up staying there to watch the spectacle. The long-haired guy disarms Gregory, and he immediately charges against the dragon, but he is not even shaken and leaves him out of combat very quickly. The detail is that when he is almost about to send him straight to the grave, he feels that if he finishes him off, he will convert into a true monster. Therefore, he prefers to put him to sleep with a draconic blow, and upon seeing this, Gregory no longer has any doubts that this dragon is an ally. However, the detail is that because he preferred not to kill the clever long-haired rogue, he begins to stand back up, and the surprised dragon tries to check his status. But what is happening is that the long-haired guy has the exact same status ailment as the Mara wolves. And you remember that curious kid who wanted to watch the fight, right? Well, he ends up being taken as a hostage. And that is what happens when you are too curious about things. They then wonder what they should do, since if they try anything, the long-haired guy will end the boy's life, and if they do nothing, the rock dragon will end everyone's life completely. Right at that moment, the long-haired guy drops the sword. He then grabs the egg once more and surprises everyone upon seeing that a mysterious slime is coming out from its interior. He takes it to the top of the tower, and to top off the disaster, the rock dragon arrives at the location. It is then that he intends to break the egg, but Illusia is not going to permit this. The detail is that the long-haired guy throws the boy, causing the dragon to swerve to save him. In the end, the long-haired guy got what he wanted. He broke the egg, provoking the wrath of the rock dragon. He shakes the entire place, and Marielle, for her part, hears the crash and thinks about what all of this could be. Upon heading to the village, she runs into Miria, who informs her of the entire situation. Returning to Illusia, he manages to save the boy, but looking at the panorama, he regrets not having been able to finish off Daz, since if he had simply sent him straight to the grave, none of this would have happened. Gregory reunites with him, and the dragon gets emotional upon seeing that he is still alive, and asks him to take the boy far away from this location because he is going to stay and fight. Gregory understands and begs him not to die, and quickly leaves the location together with the boy, while our little dragon decides to fight with everything he has, because he has many things to protect, and intends to fight for everyone in this place, people he does not even know, people who simply despised him and stabbed him, but since they simply gave him a few crumbs of affection, he is going to give his everything for them. Upon checking the status of the rock dragon, he notices that its attributes have risen significantly due to its wrath. He does not know if he will be able to win against it, but at least he will do his best to buy some time. And so he advances with everything he has. Regrettably, his dragon breath technique has no effect, and his dragon punches do not either, nor does his meteor punch even tickle. With just a single blow from the earth dragon, it leaves him on the ground, and the dragon realizes that up until now, This is the strongest enemy he has ever faced. When the rock dragon is about to send him to dragon heaven, the heavy cavalry arrives to the rescue, but their attacks are completely useless. However, they serve to distract the dragon, which allows our beloved little dragon to manage to attack it. But even though they combine their forces, they still fail to inflict any significant damage on the rock dragon, and it ends up utilizing an earthquake. In this manner, it ends up killing Luca and leaving Gregory in a very complicated situation. Just then, the dragon begins to hear a voice inside his mind telling him to get out of there. The divine voice rises to level 4, and now he has access to a simplified simulation through the divine voice. The dragon then continues to listen to the divinity, which tells him that no matter how much it warned him, he never escaped. It acknowledges that this was a very exceptional case in many ways, but it is a pity that their paths separate in this place. The divine voice tells him to rest in peace, since it thoroughly enjoyed observing his journey. Meanwhile, Illusia is frustrated and gets irritated upon feeling as though someone were watching over his shoulder. He asks who on earth it is, and the divine voice warns that he does not have permission to know that. The divinity somehow abandons him, but the dragon has no intention of surrendering, because he still has one last card to play. He did not want to use it, because if he changes his form completely, both Miria and the Black Caterpillar might not recognize him. Currently, he has 4 options, but he does not know which one he should choose for this situation. The Arch-Dragon uses white magic, but that is not useful for attacking. With the Rolling Dragon, he feels that it will not be very effective, since he will basically be Sonic. There is also the Jormungandr, which is a very good option, since its poison is top tier, but it is highly dangerous, since it can destroy an entire civilization. And lastly, we have the Dark Dragon Human, which must probably be the worst option. While he thinks about which would be the best choice, he feels as though his mana were being drained. The divine voice then speaks to him, stating that he has obtained a title called the Divine Voice Interference Right, and now he begins to see the statistics. And in this manner, he manages to see everything that the evolutions would offer him. With the Jormungandr, he has the possibility of mutually destroying himself along with the dragon, but there is a 94% chance of destroying the entire village in the process. The Rolling Dragon is literally a joke. It only serves for running away. The Dark Dragon Human would not be a good choice either, and the dragon feels frustrated and wonders why on earth it shows these diagnostics, since it is basically saying that he stands absolutely no chance. So basically, he begins to curse the divinity, while for Gregory, all that is left is to await his end. The other group of adventurers is listening to what is going on in the village and quickly heads over there, while Marielle is asking Miria if they have already evacuated everyone, although she mentions that there are still many left, and Marielle understands. So she asks her to hurry everyone up while she heads to the village, although Miria replies that since she took charge of healing everyone, she can also go to the village because there might be more injured people in the plaza. Marielle finds no flaws in her logic, so she ends up accepting. Returning to our little dragon, he is wondering what he should do, and his priority now is to save Gregory, so the best option would be to convert into a Dark Dragon Human to be able to use healing magic. But before he can attempt to evolve, the divine voice warns him that he has a 4% chance of victory and a 1% chance of saving the injured. The dragon orders it to shut up. He charges against the rock dragon only to leap over to Gregory right after. It is then that he realizes that the young man is in a very grave state. But just then, Gregory grabs his hand and tells him not to worry. In its place, he asks why he fights for humans when he is a calamity dragon. There is no way for him to understand him, but even so, he says that his intuition tells him that he is not fighting with his true power. For that reason, he asks him to devour him, because he is a calamity dragon that becomes stronger by eating people. The dragon refuses because eating people will not make him strong. For that, he has his evolutions, but just then, he realizes that on the list of evolutions, the calamity dragon is not there, and he wonders why it is not available on the list of options. But right then, Gregory observes him and reminds him that he had already saved Miria. However, when he brought her to the village, he only received him with attacks. Even so, on this day, he is fighting for them, and now thinking better of it, the dragon actually has nothing of a monster inside him, but it might be precisely that which prevents him from defeating his opponent. Placing one of the dragon's claws against his own neck, he begs for him to please devour him, while in another part, that long-haired idiot wonders what on earth is happening with Gregory. He begs for the dragon to please save the village, and the dragon, left with no other options, amidst tears, fulfills his wish. he tears off his head, and without wasting any time, the divine voice announces that the path of evil has risen from level 4 to level 5. His calamity level has risen from 1 to 3, and the king of vileness has reached level 2, which allows him to unlock the evolution of the Calamity Dragon, which is probably very close to the power of a B rank, an evil dragon that sows chaos and disaster, destroying everything where it passes. It is one of the 3 greatest calamities in the world. The dragon decides on this evolution. His body begins to transform, and that long-haired idiot, upon seeing him, runs desperately for his life. After letting out a powerful roar, the dragon roars in memory of Gregory, stating that he must not worry, because he will take charge of protecting this village, cost what it may. Both dragons roar at each other, and quickly charge against one another. Upon colliding, Illusia realizes that this cursed monster still weighs a great deal, but he does not intend to win the combat through brute force. He begins to fly in order to try to lift its neck and break it, but the rock dragon remains highly resistant. Illusia then changes his plans and takes his distance, and prepares to crush the dragon. Returning to Marielle and Miria, they are inside the village desperately searching for the young people, when out of nowhere they run into the long-haired Daz. And surely this scoundrel is going to keep claiming that the dragon devoured Daz, and this and that, in order to try to make the two of them turn against him. Just watch. The girls then ask what happened, and he throws himself to the ground, and shortly after that, he leads them to where Gregory's corpse is, and claims that the black dragon was the one who did this, since in this manner it managed to convert into something abominable. Miria replies that the dragon would never do that, but this swindler claims that he saw the black dragon decapitating the boy. Miria asks if by any chance the dragon evolved, but the liar does not really know how to answer. He only knows that they are fighting to the east. Miria, for her part, continues denying that the dragon did this, but Marielle asks her to calm down because at this moment there are other priorities. Marielle mobilizes herself to heal the wounded, while for his part on the battlefield, the dragon complains because the scoundrel of a rock dragon remains very resistant. He manages to dodge his attacks, and counters with the wind blade technique, an attack that turns out to be quite effective. He gets very excited, and notices that he also possesses a skill called Neckbreaker Hook, but he does not know very well how to utilize that one. The rock dragon then charges against him once more, but Illusia dodges quickly, and upon seeing the dragon's health points, he cannot understand how this cursed thing manages to be so resistant, and wonders if it has any weak point. The divine voice annoys him once again, stating that it cannot provide this information. It is then that Illusia assumes that due to being such a resistant monster, its only weak point must be the head, so he attacks there repeatedly. He lands a draconic tail strike, only to connect a dragon punch right after, finalizing with a potent blow to the head, apparently managing to leave the rock dragon blind. At first, Illusia thinks that now he will be able to fight with more tranquility, but the rock dragon is sly, so it begins to move desperately in the direction of the village, and Illusia runs to stop it, intercepting it on the way. Meanwhile, for her part, Marielle tries to heal the wounded. Upon attempting to ask Miria how the surroundings look, she panics upon seeing that this cursed girl is nowhere to be found. Returning to our beloved little dragon, he is trying to halt the rock dragon, but because of this, he cannot attack it in an effective manner, and in desperation, he begins to flap his wings, unconsciously activating his poisonous powder. This turns out to be quite effective against the rock dragon. Upon staring closely at its neck, he notices that it is quite thin, so probably this must be its weak point, and the dragon takes advantage of the fact that it is poisoned to attack its neck simultaneously. He puts everything he has into his attacks, and right then, he activates that distinct skill, the neck hook, with which he finally manages to destroy this cursed rock dragon. We then notice that on the battlefield, various poison particles are scattered, and the dragon obtains 384 experience points. And thanks to his walking egg title, he receives double the amount, and rises from level 1 to 19 instantly. He finally falls to the ground to rest, although not much time passes when out of nowhere Miria appears, who asks if by any chance he is the little dragon. He is surprised that she realized, but in truth, it is quite easy to identify him, since he was the dragon and evolved into another dragon. She comments that he grew enormous, and the dragon remembers that he evolved after killing Gregory, but at that moment, he begins to be attacked by Marielle. Miria orders her to stop because he is Illusia, the dragon she had spoken about, except now he is much bigger. However, Marielle reminds her that he was the one who killed Gregory, and Miria turns and asks if by any chance that is true. But the dragon only remains in silence. Marielle, for her part, orders her to step away from the dragon, but Miria refuses because there must be a mistake, since her beloved little dragon would never do something like that. Marielle is surprised to see that Miria trusts him completely, but the wind begins to blow, and the poison particles begin to spread once more. Illusia quickly retracts his wings, and laments because now he has converted into an aberration that can no longer continue by her side. He quickly pushes Miria away, and soon flies off, and Marielle takes charge of purifying the poison. But Miria still refuses to believe it, while the dragon moves away from the place, understanding that this is best for Miria, and entirely by accident. He also ends up poisoning everything he passes by. Upon arriving at a lake and looking at his reflection, he is surprised by his new appearance. He feels that his body is much heavier, and right then, he notices a flower. He comments that he had never really been interested in flowers before, until this very moment, and upon scanning the flower, he discovers that it is called an illusia, just like his name. The divine voice explains that it is a flower with red and white petals that grows only in lands inhabited by monsters. For this reason, it is very difficult to harvest, but it is highly appreciated as a gift, and in the language of flowers, it symbolizes courage, bravery, and heroism. The dragon begins to cry. He remembers when Miria baptized him with that name, and in desperation, he begs the divine voice to erase it. He no longer wants to know anything about this name, since it reminds him of her, and he can no longer be by her side, and all he feels is pain. However, once his name has been set, there is no way to erase it anymore. He throws himself to the ground and wonders what he is doing in this world. On the other side, we see the adventurers who arrived at the village after the dragon had already taken care of everything. They reunite with Marielle, while Miria wonders why the little dragon did that. The adventurers ask Marielle to explain why there is a dead rock dragon at the location, and she tells them that it faced a calamity dragon, which flew off through the forest after defeating it. They then ask about the villagers, and Marielle tells them that the vast majority are safe, but there are some missing people. The adventurers decide to go look for them, and Miria accompanies them because they do not know the village well. But before they go, Marielle tells them that she knows very well what she has to do. On the other side, upon opening his eyes, our beloved black caterpillar appears once again, and the dragon is very emotional to see that she still recognizes him. He begs her forgiveness for having left her alone, and she forgives him. But unfortunately, the dragon thinks that he can no longer stay together with her, nor can he return to the village, because they will see him as the calamity dragon that ended Gregory's life. He must move forward through the forest, because his poisonous powder can cause damage to the black caterpillar, and to the monkeys as well. He does not want to cause any harm to them. But before leaving, he has to find out what ended up leaving that naughty long-haired guy in that state, so that the people of the village do not go through that either. It is then that he quickly begins to fly, returning to his cave, although he doubts very much that he will be able to fit inside. The black caterpillar rides on his back, but he feels a very strange sensation, and his presence detection skill activates. Upon observing the forest from the heights, he sees that cursed slime from before once again. One more time, he tries to check its attributes, but since his skill is at level 5, he cannot obtain all the data. The dragon remembers that the exact same thing happened to him when he tried to see the status of that slime, and even when he tried to examine the long-haired guy, the exact same thing happened. He wonders if by any chance this is a coincidence, and he encounters this slime once more. Coincidentally, it is heading toward the village, and he follows it to obtain more information. Although his scanning skill remains at a low level, he can notice that this miserable slime has a massive quantity of skills. It has skills such as the third eye, regeneration, mana, magic wave emission, magic wave reception, hell treasure, and 300,000 more skills, which if I were to stay here telling you all about them, there would be no recap for any other anime left. There would only be this one. So let us ignore this right here and continue. It is then that the dragon is very confused, wondering why a slime possesses the skills of a spider. He cannot find any sense in this, and he also becomes worried upon seeing human skills, such as the swordsmanship talent. It is then that he realizes that when he examined the body of the long-haired guy, he did not possess any skills. Indeed, it was very strange that he could control the Mara wolves. Therefore, he reaches the conclusion that this little thing right here can steal the skills of its target, in addition to manipulating it at its own absolute whim. And upon understanding that due to the fault of this miserable thing, the village ended up in that manner, he has no intention of permitting a danger of this magnitude to keep walking around freely out there, since Miria, the black caterpillar, the monkeys, and various other people are located in this place. And even though they are not that many, he wants to protect them, so he intends to act as a meaningful hero. It is then that he flies quickly in the direction of the slime, and warns the black caterpillar that this is the final enemy. So if the situation gets very ugly, she has to flee immediately. They quickly charge against it, and he ends up covering himself with the smokescreen technique. And Illusia attempts to provoke him so that he will come out of his hiding place. But out of nowhere, two small humans appear, who wonder what is going on over there, and the dragon wonders where they came from. But out of nowhere, a knife strike flashes out. He realizes that in reality, it is the slime in disguise. It thinks that it would already kill him with that, and changes into its original form. It comments that it remembers the juvenile calamity dragon it met at the lake. But just then, an eye appears on its chest, detecting the black caterpillar, and she manages to hit it. But the slime regenerates quickly. The dragon becomes worried because this regeneration skill is extreme, which might mean that it probably absorbed all the healing skills in the forest. He then prepares to finish everything in a single blow, so that it cannot regenerate. However, the slime raises its hands and asks if by any chance he can understand what it means. It is speaking in the human language and proposes that they stop fighting, that they make a truce. But the dragon refuses because it utilized the long-haired guy to devastate the village. The slime does not understand anything he is saying, but if he is protecting the village, he must probably be interested in the humans, and asks if by any chance he wants to get to know more of them. It transforms into the two little ones from before, commenting that they had an excellent flavor, but unfortunately possessed no skills. The dragon is appalled, thinking about how many people it killed. But when the slime transforms into the long-haired guy, it reveals that it controlled this human to guide the rock dragon toward the village. And while many humans died, it was merely observing. It collected a bunch of skills without any effort, and the infuriated dragon tells it that he is going to wipe out its kind. The slime, seeing that he is very bothered, asks if by any chance he also wanted to eat the humans. It was simply protecting its pantry, and apologizes for having interrupted his food. However, it has to go to the village to collect as many skills as possible, but if he wants to go with it, there is no problem at all. In fact, they could hold a contest to see who eats more. The dragon is already running out of patience, and says that on this occasion, he is going to destroy it. Meanwhile, in the village, the girls find themselves searching for the missing people. While Miria observed the sky, she mentions the dragon's name, and Melchai asks if by any chance that is the name of one of the missing people. But Miria replies that in reality, it is the name of the calamity dragon that protected the village. Melchai seems quite curious, but just then, her assistant warns that they managed to find people trapped under some rubble, and without wasting any time, they head over there. Meanwhile, Illusia is attacking with his dragon breath technique, only to grab the slime's body soon after and send it to hell with a meteor strike. He leaves the guy all shattered on the ground, and his meteor skill rises from level 1 to level 3. He informs the black caterpillar that now everything is over, and they can return to their home. But right then, he feels the powerful presence of the slime, which scales the abyss quickly, transformed into a spider. Back with the girls, once more they bring the missing people to Marielle. Marielle then speaks to Miria, stating that she is very relieved to see her safe and sound, since she was afraid that she had returned to the forest, because she knows she still trusts that calamity dragon. Miria does not know if she trusts him, but of one thing she is certain: the dragon could not have changed just like that out of nowhere without any reason. There must probably be a mistake. Although Marielle replies that even so, the reality is that he killed Gregory and also attacked her. Miria replies that there must be a reason for all of this, and for that reason, she wants to find the dragon to clarify everything. Marielle shouts that this is madness because one cannot speak with monsters. Furthermore, they are talking about one of the 3 greatest disasters in the world, and she has no intention of permitting the girl to go die in that manner. But just then, Melchai intervenes and recommends that it is better to let the girl go see the dragon, because even if they detain her, she will certainly keep looking for him. Marielle recognizes this, and Melchai proposes that in this case, the 3 of them could go look for him together. Furthermore, even for them, it would be quite prudent to investigate the behavior of this dragon. Marielle recognizes that it would be better for the future, so she ends up accepting. After all, Melchai says that she will protect her with her life, although she asks Miria not to commit any stupidity. Returning to our beloved Illusia, upon examining the monster, he realizes that it is the same slime, but now it is transformed into a spider. The black caterpillar attacks it, but it quickly regenerates, and the slime, already bored, asks them to stop bothering it, because it hates when people get in its way. And if he is going to keep bothering, then it will rid itself of him quickly. At that moment, the caterpillar leaves, and the slime activates its fire blades technique. Although instead of attacking the dragon, he attacks the poor black caterpillar, so that she cannot be attacked from behind. The slime is very excited because fusing two skills is quite powerful, and advances against the dragon. With the blast of fire blades he manages to endure it effectively, and upon seeing that he is half human and half spider, or at least the transformation, because he remains a slime, he attacks the true body directly. He manages to tear it away from the spider body, and the slime asks him to stop, but the dragon does not stop. He cuts him in two. He even thinks that everything is over, but the slime simply merges back together, and warns that it was a joke. He merges again with his spider body, commenting that although he bet on his single vital point, in reality he failed, since this entire body is him. He then recommends that he stop fighting him, since everything here is useless. But the dragon refuses and continues attacking. The irritated slime tells him that he is already bored of his interruption, so now he intends to kill him to take his skills, creating a huge blade covered in fire. This is an attack that not even our little dragon will resist. But at that moment the black caterpillar appears, which ends up surprising the slime quite a lot. But he begins to push her off himself, and he is eager to eliminate her permanently, so that it becomes a one-on-one combat. And Lucy even tries to protect her desperately, but then surprisingly, the black caterpillar's poison takes effect. The dragon examines him and notices that he has a severe poisoning. The slime becomes very upset, since although he has resistance, he did not expect the poison of this caterpillar to be so potent. It is then that Lucy asks the caterpillar to flee quickly, but at that moment the slime ends up using slowness magic, and soon captures her. Although the dragon does not intend to allow this, so he advances against him, but the slime creates another smoke screen. He causes the dragon to lose visibility, and as the smoke disperses, the dragon panics, upon seeing that the caterpillar is inside a kind of chrysalis. Meanwhile, the girls enter the forest, and Marielle takes the opportunity to tell the girl about all the chaos that occurred in the village, due to the plague dragon. This event ended up leaving many victims, but the girl tells her to stop and corrects her, letting her know that it was a misunderstanding, because the dragon was accompanying her, to stop that treacherous long-haired man. Although the wretched Marielle continues to remind her that he was the one who killed Gregory, the girl does not leave her in peace. She ends up covering Miria's mouth, and at that moment Melchi comments that she also encountered the plague dragon when they were searching for the long-haired man, but when she saw him, he had a humanoid form, and Miria explains that these dragons can change form to deceive humans, although it seems curious to her why he did not report this to her. And Melchi explains that in the first place, it had nothing to do with her mission, so she did not mention it. Besides, Juno, and she would not be capable of defeating him, and for that very reason she called for reinforcements. But that ended up taking too much time, and she apologizes for not being able to be in the village at a more critical moment. She says she was investigating, and unfortunately could not obtain much information, because the plague dragon is almost a legend. No one truly knows him. Miria asks what she refers to, but Melchi ignores her, and tells her to continue. While on the other side, Lucy panics, since the black caterpillar's mana and HP are being drained very rapidly. Desperate, he tries to break that chrysalis, but it is very resistant, so he tries to find another solution. Upon remembering that this cursed slime can combine his powers, he tries to do the same thing. He combines his wind blades with his dragon punch. The attack turns out to be quite effective. He managed to free the black caterpillar, and he is relieved to see that she is safe and sound. He thinks everything has ended, since it is only a matter of time for the caterpillar's poison to take effect on the slime, and for him to die. Further behind them, the slime appears once more. He congratulates them for defending themselves better than expected, and the dragon orders the black caterpillar to flee quickly. Upon seeing the state of the slime, he sees that he is perfectly fine, and understands that the slime stole the antidote skill from the caterpillar. Now she no longer has her antidote skill, and the slime transforms into a Mara wolf. He recommends surrendering, because he will never be able to defeat him, and asks them to be at peace, since they are monsters from the same forest, and it would be better if they enjoyed themselves together, instead of fighting. But the dragon cannot allow this, because Miria is in the nearby village, and he made a promise to Gregory. Besides, he also has the black caterpillar, and the monkeys who are his friends, and if he leaves him like this without any further action, the slime will probably end everything, so he cannot allow him to remain alive. And if there is something that intrigues him about this monster, it is probably his inspection skill, which does not allow seeing the monster's status completely. But he must definitely be a monster among those who know how the world works, since when he was poisoned by the caterpillar, he simply analyzed her and chose exactly what he wanted, the antidote. This could mean that he sees the world in the same way as our dear little dragon. But at that moment the slime, seeing that he is very thoughtful, asks if he is afraid, since he has already seen all the skills he has accumulated. And with this the dragon confirms his suspicion. The slime tells him very clearly that he can see him in the same way that he sees him. He knows everything about status and skills, and assumes that just like him, he can also hear that voice, revealing that he also hears and follows the divine will. The dragon can now see the picture better, and understands that he is only the toy of this cursed god, and irritated, he covers the entire battlefield with his flames, telling the slime that he does not intend to let him escape, and provokes him, so that he becomes even more enraged. Meanwhile, Melchi smells a very strong burning odor, and it does not take long before they see a fire in the forest. Miria and Melchi run quickly in that direction, while Marielle reprimands them, since she had told them not to act on their own. And on the other side we have the caterpillar, who is very worried, and these two without wasting time advance against each other. The slime comments that this voice they hear is the structure of this world, and they have no other alternative but to obey its rules and make themselves stronger. But the dragon refuses to follow this divine garbage, because he fights to protect what matters to him, and solely his own conviction. He then advances against the slime once more, but he manages to block the attack very easily. The slime is strong. The dragon is very frustrated, because despite surpassing him with attributes, the slime has many skills to counter his own. He remembers that he will not be able to defeat him, and it is laughable for him to surrender once more. He uses the skills of the Mara wolves to call for reinforcements, and the dragon understands that he wants to multiply his attacks, so that in this way he can find an opening. But he already understands his attacks better, and since his style is quite distorted, when you finally understand how it works, it is no longer very useful. But neither of them will be able to leave this place until they deliver a final blow. But he panics upon seeing how the slime is draining the mana from the monsters, and he then advances against him, since he cannot allow them to recover, so he easily disposes of the Mara wolves. But at that moment another one appears that was hidden, and by getting distracted by him, the slime takes the opportunity to attack him, nearly eliminating him permanently. He begins to laugh like a psychopath, telling him that now he is going to devour him. The slime tries to possess him by entering completely into his body, laughing victoriously. But the dragon tells him that he is already fed up with everything, and does not intend to allow him to take control of his body. And without wasting time he begins to ascend. He gains altitude at high speed, and the slime asks what it is that he is doing, since if he simply wants to smash him on the ground as he did previously, it will not work very well. This is quite predictable. The girls can see him from the sky, and the black caterpillar for her part finds herself very worried about the little dragon. The slime tries to stop Lucy, piercing his body from the inside, managing to make the dragon stop, and claims victory. He tells him that he is going to seize all of his skills, and is going to make good use of them, since with a skill to shed your scales, he will be able to annihilate the entire village, little by little, and no one will suspect that it was the work of a monster. Then he begins to laugh excitedly, and although at that moment the dragon observes his dear black caterpillar and his friend Miria, he does not want to let him cause any harm to them. And now to get rid of this cursed slime, he takes advantage of the fact that he clung to him, and begins to fly at high speed, basically to fall like a meteorite against the earth. And the slime still does not understand what he wants to do, asking if by any chance he ran out of energy and is falling. The girls on their side wonder what he is trying to do, and at that moment the dragon activates his smash at maximum potency. At this altitude probably not even the slime could resist, and the slime tells him to stop because if he does that both will die. But the dragon tells him that it does not matter as long as he kills him, and the further he descends the more his potency increases. and the slime, dying of fear of dying, accepts defeat and surrenders, saying that he will not attack the village and will go into the forest, but the dragon replies that he should start praying, since that exact spot is going to be his grave, and the slime even attacks him with all his strength, striking all parts of his body, in a desperate attempt to stop him. He comments that he promised the divine voice he would get stronger, but the dragon does not care at all about his promise, and with total determination he simply advances against the abyss, and everything becomes white. Now we see how Miria is desperately searching for the dragon, and Melchi manages to find him, the black caterpillar as well, but unfortunately the rain overflows the river, and it carries away the body of the dragon, and Miria even tries to go after him, but Melchi stops her, and slaps Miria so that she controls herself and calms down, while the black caterpillar for her part is sad, watching the river. Later the girls return to the village, and Juno asks Melchi what happened in the forest. She replies that it seemed like the plague dragon was fighting desperately against something, and Marielle comments that she had the same impression. But everything is very confusing. Marielle comments to Melchi that Miria probably wanted to leave the village. She has always been a sensible girl, but she always wanted to see the world. So she asks Melchi to help clarify her thoughts, and advise her on whatever is necessary. Meanwhile, we see Miria mentioning the name of the dragon, and now we see that her face shows determination. While for her part the black caterpillar reunites with the monkeys, and orders them to protect the cave until she returns. It is then that we see that at the entrance there is a statue of the two of them, and on the other side we see the eye of the dragon, who for some very strange reason feels a deja vu. He panics and wonders if he died again or converted into another egg. But no, he simply comes out of a pile of sand. He wonders if he managed to defeat the slime, and desperately begins to call the black caterpillar and Miria. But upon seeing the complete panorama he wonders where on earth he is. And this is where our anime ends. I hope that you all enjoyed it, and comment down below if you want part 2. That is it. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel. We are together. Thank you. Bye. And until the next video, one thing, if you stayed until here, comment there. The dragon is awesome, so that we know that you stayed until the end. We are together.